Good afternoon and welcome. This is the Marion City Council work session for Tuesday, September 19th. Okay. First on the agenda, we have an update from Brooke Prouty, Marion Uptown.
Hello. I'm here today to update you guys. We participate in a program as a certified Main Street district. We have access to the Iowa Economic Development Authority's programs that they offer to us for free that they wouldn't offer to other downtown districts. We participated in this one called the First Impressions Exchange. It's similar to a secret shopping experience where we sent 9 volunteers to Boone, Iowa, and then Boone, Iowa sent 8 volunteers to Marion, and then we got the results just this last week. They came and did a whole breakdown session with us to explain the results.
And just to clarify, those volunteers, they come here and no one knows they're here, correct? It's a anonymous thing, and they report on their first impression of the community, what they found, what they saw, what their impression was of the community, and no one here knew when they were going to be here, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Completely unbiased. These were volunteers that had never been to our community before, and nobody in our community knew that they were coming.
Okay. Just want to make sure that was clear for everyone.
Yep. We received, in the whole history of this program, we received the best score that any downtown area has ever received. So whether Boone was just being really nice on us that day, or we really impressed them while they were here. So
and
some things.
And how many communities in the Main Street program? Do you know?
There's 52 communities, and about 13 to 15 participate in this specific program every year.
Okay. Thanks.
We received the top score ever. Some of the comments that we are really awesome at are our customer service. They were really impressed by all the shops they went into. Our online presence and community branding, the Uptown Artway. The majority of our historic buildings have been refurbished, which is not the case in a lot of towns in Iowa. They were also very impressed with how we utilized our upper units of our historic buildings and also how many upper unit housing units that we had. A lot of communities, you'll see main floors boarded up, but you'll also see a huge number of upper floor housing or units boarded up on top. We don't really have a lot of those. No vacancies, and where there were vacancies on main floors, there was obviously construction going on to improve those to house businesses. They also were very impressed by Marion Square Park, our brick streets, which I think sometimes we take for granted, and then that there were no issues with parking. Did want to asterisk this one. They did mention a little bit of confusion with the 2-hour parking limit and some of the parking signs that were up. But this is also one that could be a growing problem with the development that is coming to our area, just to keep in mind. And then they also said that it was very obvious that the people that live here take pride in their community, which is one of the best compliments that was reiterated numerous times on the survey. Needing work. Actually, before we move on to that, I wanted to tell you a couple of things that they were asked. List up to 5 of the downtown district's apparent strengths and things that they would want to take back to their community. Some of those were ease of accessibility of parking and walkability. The library, city hall, and chamber were all downtown and accessible. We have historic appearance, a square that was clean and well kept. There was obvious branding efforts through banners, and they had very positive experiences with the stores that they went to. Needs work. Most of these are things that we are already working on, so that's an awesome thing to be able to say. They mentioned wayfinding was a need. They kind of stumbled upon us. I mean, we're on the main street through town, so it's pretty easy to get here, but there wasn't a lot of signage to get here, and the city has talked about working on a wayfinding study. Also some gateway features. They didn't notice any of those. 7th and 8th Avenue street repair, which is being talked about through our corridor plan. There's high traffic on 7th Avenue, which is also being addressed through that same plan. And then they talked a lot about some immediate sidewalk improvements. This was also something that the IEDA mentioned when they talked to us about the survey, is that these are some things that we might want to think about sooner rather than later because they could potentially be a liability. And lastly, I want to show you some quotes that were given. The community appears to have a progressive mindset, and this was a question about our online presence. The overall appearance of buildings in the downtown district, it was obvious that people take pride in the ownership. The general ambiance was relaxed, very enjoyable. I felt like a vacationer, and that Uptown Marion had a hometown feeling. And lastly, my favorite comment was that this was just in the additional comments portion. With the updated city offices, nice library, and other streetscape improvements, it looks like Marion is invested in keeping their downtown alive and vibrant. So I want to thank you for all you do for our Uptown district and for all your work you're putting into helping us reinvest in our historic commercial center. If you have any questions, I can provide the full survey if you'd like. That was it.
Any questions?
Yeah, I
Go
do,
ahead.
as a matter of fact. If this organization comes in and says this town has a wonderful feeling and all this, why do we want to change the mall? Why do we want to tear down the library? You know, obviously they were impressed with what is physically here now.
And a lot of the things that they were impressed by are new improvements. So it's the alley project, it's the brick streets that have obviously been improved recently. So I think progress is what they were really pointing out were the main things that they were impressed by.
Did they see an artist rendering of the new library and with the retail and the housing and all that? Did they see any of that stuff?
No, they came blind to all that.
I don't think that would have given us as good a score as we got, because obviously they like what they saw, and that's it.
They may have seen those on our website because they did go through the city's website also, and that may have led to the comment about having a progressive mindset, so they could have viewed those through the website. Any other questions?
I think one of the comments that the person who came and met with us about this made was that, you know, the branding and everything, the consistency of the message across all the websites and the web pages of the various organizations, that was very noticeable. And I think that's an endorsement of the branding process. I know, you know, no two people in this city could have agreed on what the brand image should look like, and you wouldn't expect that. It's very subjective, but the fact that we have a brand image and has been applied consistently across the board, I think it's working. You know, regardless of what it is, but it's working, and it shows a professional image, I think, in the city, and this I think is a endorsement of that.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions for Brooke? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for everything you're doing for Uptown Marion. Okay. Capital Improvements Program.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just wanted to follow up with the council based on our meeting last week where we discussed the capital improvement program. I know that all the council members were not able to attend that meeting, so we've been doing some work with catching up, and to date we've had submissions back in from 5 of the council members with their project rankings. And so where we're sitting at, we have several projects that would rank 5, quite a few that would rank 4, but there still are a couple of projects that are out there that are on the bubble. that may have mixed support, for example, with 4-4 or 1 against, or 3-4, 1 against, that we still need the remaining council members to weigh in on in order to get a real clear picture of what those priorities are for the CIP. We also met on the staff side and went through some of the projects that were listed out there. And one of the things I think that we're encountering is that as we're entering into the out years of the local option sales tax spending plan, we had a lot of projects on there that were based on anticipated condition of a road 5, 6, 7 years away from when it was last evaluated. And because of that, I think we saw that up north with Winslow and Lucor, that at one point we thought Lucor would last longer, but due to traffic it actually deteriorated more quickly. And so between the internal review and then looking at the council support, there were several projects that we identified that I think we can probably move off of the funded project list that would free up funding for other projects. There was very little support, for example, for making improvements to the intersection of 35th Street and Moonier Drive. Same thing with doing traffic signals at 44th and Highway 100, and then also the First Avenue reconstruction. So there's a lot of them out there that only have maybe 1 or 2 council members that are supporting them, and with that type of support and additionally without staff members out there really advocating to council that these are the projects that we need to do, we'll continue to move through that list so that we can present you with that next draft. But I think we're down to needing that ranking just from 2 council members, so if we can get that, we can get this finished up and buttoned up. Anything else you want to cover?
If they have any comments that they want to provide.
Yeah.
Questions?
Questions, comments? And thank you for your efforts on this. I know it's been quite a bit to get through all of those pages and pages and pages of projects.
There is one question I have under Culture and Recreation, Starry parking lot resurfacing. Why is that put on the city? Since it's school.
The park, the ball diamond, not the school.
Oh, okay. Well, it just says Starry. Thank you.
The one thing I will say is that we haven't had much clarification from the council members on annual programs, and I know we talked about those in a little bit more detail at the meeting about potential ways that those could be funded, but if you're so inclined to give us a little bit more detail, I would ask for some clarification that if we have to choose between the annual programs that we could do, would it be more important, for example, to do curbs versus sidewalks and so on? And the major thing I look at those is what we need to be able to get to is those annual programs should really be being funded out of operating revenue. You don't really want to do programs like that out of bond funding if it can be at all avoided.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, finance?
Yes, Your Honor. On Thursday's agenda, we're going to have a resolution authorizing the approval of issuing some refunding bonds, 2017 Bs. This is to refund some bonds that were sold back in 2009. It's kind of like refinancing your house, where hopefully we'll get better interest rates and reduce the amount of interest we're going to be paying over the life of those bonds. Tiana Pooler, we're going to have our bidding, receive bids Thursday morning, and then Tiana Pooler, our financial consultant, will be here Thursday evening to review those bids with you, answer any questions, tell you the information that she has towards the bonds. We're looking for a couple good bidders, hopefully at least 3 or 4, and a low interest rate to go with it, so we'll wait and see. Is there any questions you might have on those? Like I said, this is just a refunding issue. This is replacing some bonds that we sold several years ago.
You said these were done in 2009?
2009.
So what's the life left on them then?
The life left on the 2009?
Yeah.
Some of them went out to, because there was 2 issues in 2009. One will go, it went to 2025, and one, I think, 2020. They still had a little life on them left. But they carried a little bit higher interest rate too, 3 and 4%. So we're hoping to get maybe 2 or 3% on our refunding.
There, like a cost to reissue these, or?
There's going to be an issue cost, but we also had our Moody's, some of the administrative costs that are associated with the issuance are being kind of split with the 2017 A bonds that we sold a few weeks ago. So it does reduce the cost by having one Moody's valuation instead of having two separate ones. But we are still expecting to recoup maybe a little over $200,000 in interest and save that much. So even if we end up with $20,000, $30,000 in issue costs, we're still way ahead.
But that'll put these bonds out another 20 years then, or?
No, they'll only go out about another 10 years, I think.
10, okay.
So it's not going to really extend the life any length of time.
Okay, thanks.
Wes, is any of this an advance refunding, or all of these bonds are all callable?
These are all bonds that are callable that are left.
Okay.
Does that mean they can pay them off anytime?
That's when you can actually not have to do advance refunding. It's just callable now. You don't have to.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got to speak engineering terms to me.
And just so it's glad, I know we talked about it a little bit at the last meeting, that someone has again mentioned to me the city debt. So what exactly is the number?
Did you have a chance, Lon, to update your schedule, or? No, I haven't. I mean, we're going to be paying off some more, about $5 million in principal next June 1st.
Right. Yes.
And then this is not going to increase our debt. This is just some refinancing of some other bonds. The ones we sold about 2 weeks ago, that was about a $6.8 million issue. So we're not going to be that much more than we were, currently. We should be around 55 million right now. We might be up to 56 or 7 after we make our next June payment.
Okay. Questions? We good? All right. Public service.
Thank you, Your Honor. First item on the agenda, this is a receive and file by the City of Cedar Rapids. They contacted Marion staff with a request to connect to our sewer line. And hopefully you've had a chance to review the letter, and I'll kind of go over what they're requesting, as well as some background information. This is an area C, which has some proposed development activities. Currently, there is no sanitary sewer service in that area. As proposed, it would be in the city of Cedar Rapids. They are requesting to connect onto Marion sewer line. Now, have to remind council, we've been going back and forth on a sewer agreement. We met today regarding that agreement, and it is staff's opinion that we should probably hold off allowing this connection until that agreement is finalized. Today, I was informed that we will have an agreement in October. We'll have to formally respond to the letter here. If you go through it, they're looking to connect. I did hint to them that staff's position is that we probably won't allow that connection until we have that agreement, until it's acceptable by both parties. Additionally, we'll probably solicit direction from the city council. So I guess I kind of want to get some feedback from you guys, whether or not you would think differently. I don't want to speak for the council, but at least that's staff's position on this. We've been working on this agreement for a good 6 years now. We see no reason, nor are we obligated to allow that connection to occur. This is just the easiest point to where they can connect. If the council thinks otherwise, we'll draft our documents that way. If you'd like to go on along with staff's recommendation, I'll let them know.
Is there any expense to the city from them connecting?
It depends on how the city would approach this. The way the city of Cedar Rapids initially proposed in this document is that they would build that line in throughout the area to be within the city of Marion, and then connection fees would go back to the city of Cedar Rapids. That's something we're not even close to even vetting yet. That's another project in itself. One thing we're looking at is whether or not just allow this connection to occur. There would be no upfront cost to the city of Marion by allowing them to do this right now, but we think we should iron a few things out before we go down that road.
Would it be possible to put a flow meter on what they're putting into their system that could be deducted off of what they're charging?
Yes, I think, especially with the trunk sewer project, as well as some additional flow meters we're going to move around. We will monitor all that flow.
Yeah, so that way they can't say, hey, you're flowing up. Well, that's because you hooked up to it. So if we could monitor how much they're putting in, and have them subtract off of that.
But even without that, is there any kind of remuneration to the city for their use of the line?
Go ahead.
If I could, one of the concerns I would have from a planning perspective is that you're providing a sewer line through private property, which is fine and typical. It would be development driven, but this is in the line of growth, and that property owner is going to need to be involved to detail if that sewer line's not placed in the maybe placed best to serve from the sewer perspective, but we want to include the property owner for development, because obviously we don't want it to impede development in that area, and ensure that it's done in cooperation with long-range plans. That sewer line's not just being extended to serve one development. I'm fairly certain that it goes quite a bit further to the west. So I don't know.
Yeah. Tom makes a good point. They haven't even had any conversations with the landowners out there for acquisitions. So given the nature of the request, personally, we think it's appropriate to say, hey, let's get this piece done, our wastewater treatment agreement, and then we'll work on another project agreement as we move along. That's what
I agree.
So,
Yeah, one more. Would that restrict what we're planning to build out in this area by, would that any way restrict what we're trying to do up here?
Well, I don't think it restricts anything. I think it brings to question, though, how the property is going to develop. You're putting a sewer line through property, through farm fields. I think there's a plat on the agenda I can show you where we allowed a sewer.
No, not that. I'm talking about growth around it as far as the capacity of the sewer.
you're talking capacity of the system?
Oh, yes.
No. If there are capacity concerns created downstream, it would be on the city of Cedar Rapids or the developer to remedy that. We had that discussion today.
Okay.
That hasn't been vetted out either. And so that's one of the things that we get nervous about. If they're asking to connect to existing sewer lines, all that capacity engineering has to review the capacity downstream, and we have to figure out who's responsible for upgrading that capacity as well.
Yeah, okay.
And so the request is premature at best. It really is. So we're not even to the point where we think we should even consider this request.
Yeah, Tom, sorry. I just didn't want a development to say, hey, we can't grow because, our sewer line's at max now.
Or we would have to add something extra.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
And they understand that. We just can't allow a developer to come in and all of a sudden it hurts the city.
Right.
There has to be studies done. They have to look at that as well.
Yeah.
And so
that's what I was after, Don.
Yeah, in this map, I didn't hear Ryan explain it. Area A this is our annexation agreement map with the city of Cedar Rapids. So we go to Area B. That's the line.
Yeah.
Cedar Rapids goes to A. Area C is kind of, I highly doubt that there's going to be a voluntary petition to annex, but they'll probably be surrounded at some point with an annexation, so they would either be included in the City of Marion annexation or Cedar Rapids. It's just kind of however it falls.
And as Tom pointed out, you're putting a sewer line in without planned development.
There's no plat.
There's a lot of concerns with this.
Right.
Area C is still county.
Correct.
It hasn't even been annexed into the Cedar Rapids.
None of the white
Just the colored portions have been annexed into the municipalities. Pink is Marion, yellow is Cedar Rapids, teal is Robbins. So,
I'd say hold off.
okay. Now we'll be happy to prepare correspondence. We just want to answer them officially, but I already hinted at that direction. So, okay, sounds good. And then as soon as we get an agreement back, I'll get it out to council for review, and we'll do some staff reviews with that as well. So it's getting better, I should say. Okay. Anything else on number 1? I can go to 2 and 3 if you like, Your Honor.
Okay.
Okay, 2 and 3, discussion about project delivery for the Eco-Industrial Park. One of the things we've been looking at, if the council decides to move forward with this, for the construction of the public service facilities, we're looking at a project delivery method known as contract manager at risk. And essentially what that is that the city goes out, they do a request for qualifications, followed up a request for proposal. The qualified firms that are narrowed down put in a proposal to construct the project or to deliver the project. And in this manner, they essentially work for the city for a flat fee. You bring them in, you bring their project expertise to the table, and they build it. They deliver the package per specifications, per the drawings provided by the architect. A little bit different here is that they're on the hook for the whole package. They have to finance the entire construction. And then upon inspection by the city, the architects and everything like that, that's only when they can deliver this to the city successfully. Very successful service delivery. The colleges, universities are starting to use this. The people I did consult had very, very good luck. Some of the projects to date, I'll pull this out for council. Latest one in this area was Cornell College, but Hampshire Auditorium just got completed down at the University of Iowa. They used a CM at risk process for this, whereas the contract manager came in, they financed the entire construction cost of the project. The university was in full control of the project and the subs all the way through the construction phase. They came in, they provided value engineering as well as ways to save costs and to moderate any construction overruns. So a couple more. You've probably seen this. University of Northern Iowa. This is all they use now for service delivery on these major projects. Cornell College. They just finished this, I believe, in 2014, or Co-College, excuse me, and successful project. I think Cornell. Yeah, here's Cornell. Cornell is currently using that method as well. That's for their new science center out there. So we've looked at this, the architects' discussions with the city manager, as well as bond counsel. They believe this is probably a very good fit for this project. It's a pretty straightforward project, what we're doing, but there are certain specifications we want to adhere to. I did give you a copy of the RFQ. It's a little lengthy. It's only about 5 pages. But what we'd like to do is go ahead and send the request for qualifications out. What that will do is they'll identify the firms that are qualified to do this. Doesn't tie us or obligate us to this. But then after that, we can do an RFP. And what that's going to allow us to do is come back and validate the price we have on this project that we have programmed into the CIP. And so from that point on, as soon as we get an authorization to proceed with the contract manager at risk, they'll come in and say, yeah, we guarantee to deliver this project at this price. Only then will we come back to the city council and say, hey, we're ready to move ahead, ready for your consideration on this project. And so that's kind of how we see this all coming together. In that RFQ, you'll see a little schedule that we put together. We're going to stick to that. We're going to turn this around so that the council has something tangible in front of them for consideration here in the next few months. So, any questions on that?
How does this differ from what we did with the police station?
Lon could probably answer that a little bit better, but my understanding is that the police station was more of a lease purchase. This contract manager allows us to pick the subs, to pick the materials that go in it, a little bit more control. but Lon could probably allude a little bit better to how that worked.
Yeah,
I guess the thing that, before you go, Lon, that my concern was that it'll put a middle person between the construction company and, I mean, it puts another layer in between us and the construction
To me,
company.
this is different. They are working for us. And so there's no big construction company we're going to go to. It's going to be them and the subs.
Okay,
Before, it was, what we've done before is one big construction company that hired all the subs.
Right.
Okay? Now it's these guys and the subs.
okay.
So we're not introducing a layer, we're introducing a layer that gives us more control, and if anything, more cost savings. That's how we're looking at this.
Okay,
Yeah, really with this type of a method, what you're doing is the construction manager more or less takes the place of the general contractor on a project like this. So rather than doing a conventional design bid build project where you hire an architect or an engineer and then put it out to bid, a general contractor bids the project, gets awarded the bid. The general contractor essentially is working for themselves. You know, their motivation, of course, is to make as much money as they can on the project. In a case like this where the construction manager works for us, the construction manager takes the place of that general contractor, and one of the things that they will do, for example, is work to parcel out the project into bid packages that make sense and take advantage of timing based on their knowledge of the construction industry and the subcontractors that are available to get you the best pricing. It's not unusual to do that on projects like this where you've got a lot of different moving parts and you have a lot of different disciplines that may be coming in. I don't know what kind of luck you'd have, for example, if you tried to just go out and find a general contractor who had built facilities that were designed around a compressed natural gas fleet in this area as yet. So there's some specialties there that we want to be able to make sure if we've said this is the equipment vendor that we want to go with, we can only achieve that by going through this route. Otherwise, if you do general contract, well, you say, I need a compressed natural gas pump that meets these specifications, you might end up with something that is cheaper up front, but the life cycle cost of it ends up eating you up in maintenance.
Yeah, that's a good way to explain it. They are essentially, they are the general contractor, but they are working for us. If they save us money, they make no more money. If they, if we go over on the project, typically you can penalize them, but they're advocating for the city from this point forward. A lot of firms are going to this. They identify value in that, so do a lot of public entities. And so having them on board with their project expertise to help save costs along the way, that's a lot of value to us. So.
And then can I do one more question? Mm-hmm. Will we get a price for the project and that will be it, or will it be a moving target?
So how typically how this works, you'll get a guaranteed maximum price.
Guaranteed maximum.
And so they'll say, we guarantee we won't go above this threshold. Typically what happens, it comes under. Okay. And so each and every other projects that I referenced, I talked to them, they said, well, no, we're way under budget. Because that's their job. They're going to come in and they work for you. The firms that do this are typically pretty big. And they don't want a black eye by saying, hey, we ran over on this project. They're not going to get another one after that. And so when these projects come about, especially for the public entity projects, they want to make sure they turn out well and that the customer's happy. And so each one of these projects had someone different working on them, and they've had really good success with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Lon.
I got a question. Do we have, and I know we've seen a rendering of the project, but are there plans available?
Thursday. We are tweaking our plans.
Okay.
The reason being is that the nature of this project is based upon utilities, renewable energies, fuels, and things like that. So with the mechanical side, there's some moving parts with that. It took a while to get those gelled together with the architect. And so now we're good. We have preliminary plans and we had to tweak them. I could go into the details, but there was a lot of things that we had to adjust with this. And then here this Thursday, we should have some 3D models, a final floor plan, things like that this Thursday. Goal is to bring the RFQs back to council with that plan. And
okay.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Last item, this is just a receive and file from a citizen regarding the operation of traffic signals at 10th Street and Central Ave. I want to bring this to the council's attention because we are fighting this intersection. You might be getting more complaints about this. We're doing what we can to patch this together. But this intersection operates off of, they'll detect vehicles, and this is how they detect vehicles. This is a magnetic loop inside the pavement. When a car goes over that, they detect the car and they trigger the signal to time out. The loops are original, these pavement loops, and so they're over 15 years old, and the life expectancy of these are about 10. So we're somewhat on borrowed time, but this intersection in particular, as you can see here, this loop is offset from the middle of the intersection. And so if you're northbound on 10th Street and you want to make a turn and go westbound on Central, we're fighting this loop right here. And we're not picking up the vehicles like we should. Staff went out there, we're trying to remedy out this, but we're at the end of the life cycle of the detection equipment out there. If we decide to make upgrades, it won't be cheap until the council has that right now. But I do know that engineering's working on a plan for that. Were you guys looking at a roundabout or something with that?
I know that's in the CIP to do a study, but we haven't done anything with it yet.
Okay, and so they're looking at intersection improvements here, but in the meantime, we'll have to make decisions whether or not the council wants to invest in making the necessary improvements for this to work correctly. We're getting more and more requests on this. We're doing what we can to make it work. But typically, if we're to invest in new detection equipment, it's upwards of $40,000 to $50,000. So just want to bring that to the council's attention. I know a few of you have been contacted, but we're doing what we can. There's not much we can do without upgrading the system. So,
do we have any other intersections that are kind of like this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're doing what we can to repair what's there, to make the repairs by staff that we can. This one's just, it's getting out of whack on us. So yeah. Yep. So, in the council aware.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions on this?
Mayor, just to clarify to your earlier question, I looked up what's called the preliminary official statement that our bond council drafts when we do the issuance of bonds, and they're showing our GO debt with the issuance that we just did at $55,275,000. We are programmed in this fiscal year to pay that down by about $5.4 million.
So it'll be under 50?
It'd be right around 50, 51.
Okay. Because people seem to think it's much higher, so
yeah,
that's why I wanted it clarified.
That's about 42% of Marion's actual debt limit.
Right. Thanks for that clarification. Okay. Chief?
I was just informed that I'm using the wrong background on my slides, so thank you very much. Appreciate that. Didn't get that memo. I didn't get that memo. Arrow keys. Okay, so we're going to talk to you all about two things today. We're going to talk to you all basically about the table of organization for the Marion Police Department, make a recommendation to council on sworn strength. And then Corporal Jason Schamberger is going to talk to you all about a body camera purchase that is already budgeted for the police department. Little history first. I've been here 9 months now. I've made some pretty significant changes, but in order for me to talk to you about this, I need to give you a little history about where we were prior to me coming here. In 2016, the Marion Police Department had one lieutenant assigned to its patrol bureau. The patrol bureau consisted of nearly 3/4 of the personnel that were assigned to the police department. The span of control was not manageable, and most of your work, most of your calls for service that are let's say, difficult in nature, and your younger officers are all on an evening or overnight shift. And a police commander had never been assigned to an evening or an overnight shift. And so this presented, we want some change, we want some supervision, we want some mentoring for the less tenured officers, and we want command and control during our busiest times. So also in 2016, I believe, was it 2015 or 2016 that the corporal rank came to fruition? 2015, the rank of corporal was implemented into the Marion Police Department. Great idea, but in my opinion, the implementation of that rank by the police department could have been better. 5 of the corporals were assigned to the Investigations Bureau as investigators. These are positions that are highly paid. They make just under the level of a sergeant, and over that of a topped-out police officer. So there's a very extensive investment in this corporal rank. 5 of these corporals were assigned to the Investigations Bureau as investigators. They were detectives. There was no expectation of mentoring or supervision from these individuals. They were just the detectives. 3 of the corporals were assigned to the Patrol Bureau, where they were placed in field operations, and when a sergeant was absent, they would act as an officer in charge of a shift. But then again, they had no span of control. They had nobody under them that they supervised, and there was no expectations of supervision or mentoring from these corporals that were assigned to patrol. And once again, the salary structures that these corporal have are very significant. So your table of organization in 2016, that's your personnel allotment that's allowed by the city. In 2016, we were allowed 1 chief, 1 captain, 3 lieutenants, 7 sergeants, 8 corporals, and 25 patrol officers. That's where we were last year. So in April of this year, I decided that I wanted to have more supervision on the evening and overnight shift very quickly. I'm only about 3 months in here, so I make a request to law and council to promote a lieutenant. Obviously, I would want one on each shift, but in the interim, I decided to place a lieutenant working 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. to provide oversight and mentoring and supervision to the evening and the overnight shifts. This was really the first step to create the accountability for those officers on the evening and overnight shift. It was very well received by the personnel. They felt more included and connected to the command staff and were getting more information about the general direction of the department. So very well received. And the corporal rank, over the past 9 months, I've begun to pare it down through attrition and promotions and different things that we've done within the department. So in October of this year, what I would like to do is I am going to eliminate the support services lieutenant. We had a lieutenant that has been historically assigned to the Support Services Bureau. They oversaw the communications center, and then they were the quartermaster for the department. They would order uniforms, equipment, very important position, but in my opinion, a lieutenant, a command level position, was way more than was needed for that position. So at no cost to the city or the department, what I am going to do is transfer that lieutenant to that 3rd shift. Beginning October 1st, I will have a commander on days, PMs, and overnights. What that does is it allows me to communicate effectively down a chain of command to all the individuals that work for the police department. And it also allows us to get feedback up from the bottom. What are the officers saying? What are the problems that are occurring in our community? And allows the command staff to have relationships with people in the community that maybe they're just out in the evening. Maybe their business is only open in the evening. Maybe it's a school function that I need a commander to oversee in the evening hours. And so we'll have a lot better coverage for the police department to operate efficiently. The span of control. When you have the span of control optimized for the right amount of people under a lieutenant, the lieutenant will have 2 sergeants, in some cases 3 sergeants, and then they'll have anywhere from 6 to 9 officers under their span of control. This is also a critical time for the PSAP. Our 911 center out there, we're in the middle of a consolidation study, and the progression of that center is either going to go to consolidation, or in the coming years we're going to have to add staff and really optimize our processes out there. So what is my request? Why am I here today talking to you about this? The table of organization for the police department really needs to be approved by council. What I'm asking for you is just to approve a modification to that table of organization, so in the coming years I can go to Lon during budget cycle and say this is what I think we need, and then we can have a budget discussion on the growth of the department, the growth of the city, and come to a conclusion on what we're going to ask council for. In November of this year, we're going to have the University of Cincinnati present a staffing study that we've preliminarily reviewed, but we've sent back for revisions and more information. But we anticipate him presenting that staffing study in November of this year to council. So what I'm asking is effective October 1st, I'm wanting to eliminate another corporal position from the TO, and I'm going to promote a 3rd sergeant to the evening shift. This sergeant will flex for me, though, however, to cover overtime, long-term vacations by the sergeants that are assigned to the days and the evening shift. Where does this save us money? the corporal that's in the position now that I'm going to promote makes approximately $72,000. When I put him in a command position and remove him from the union where he can administer discipline, supervise people, it cost me $4,000 initially to do that in comparison. But what it'll really do is it'll allow me to have a flexible sergeant to cover long-term vacations, illnesses, injuries. In 2016, on sergeant overtime, we spent almost $28,000. And year-to-date, 2017, our overtime expense for sergeants is almost $58,000. And I will attribute some of that increase to me. My expectation is that they always have a sergeant working in the field. That expectation was not there before. That we would go at times without a supervisory presence on patrol operations, which I think you can pick up that I'm not going to have. So what do I want the TO to look like moving for really the next 3 years? And I want council to keep in mind that just because the table of organization changes does not mean that the city manager has approved it or the council has approved it. It just allows us to have discussions on when to add staff, and if we do decide to go to council to add staff, the TO is already adjusted to allow for that growth. So what I'm requesting is a one chief position that's already there, one deputy chief position that's already there. I already have 4 lieutenants. I'm asking to go from 7 to 9 sergeants, and I'm asking to go down from 8 corporals to 4. And I think you'll find in my tenure here, I will probably take that down even further because I don't think we get the value for the position. In patrol officers, we're currently at 25, and this is just looking at planned growth over the next 3 years. I don't have an ask to add patrolmen right now, but by increasing the TO, it prevents me having to come back to council in a year or two and say, hey, we need to adjust the TO because we've decided we want to add 2 officers. So on the memo that I presented to you, and I don't even know if that's so eligible. I don't even know if I'm going to even try to explain it to you. But basically what you're seeing is the span of control with the lieutenants over the shifts. And I'll get y'all a copy of that you can see prior to the next council meeting. That just shows the organizational chart with the changes. And so in summary, in 2017, the Marion Police Department will have its most significant command coverage it's ever had. Our investment in rank is going to begin to produce leaders and just not higher salaries. I want my people to make as much as they can possibly can, but the investment that this city makes in public safety, we have to be smart with those dollars. If you're not smart with the dollars you invest in public safety, it will absolutely eat up your general fund, and we won't be able to do the cool things in Uptown and things like that. So I'm very cognizant of that. And we're in a critical state of transition right now with the staffing study, the PSAP consolidation, and our need for supervision to make sure that this community remains one of the safest in the United States. So is there any questions about my request for the TO adjustment?
Questions?
Makes sense.
In the memo, I do want to make that sergeant promotion effective October 1st. I've got a sergeant that's at a school right now, long-term school, and I can save almost $15,000 in the next month by making that promotion, just in overtime coverage.
So, you said the sergeants, are they considered a command?
They are. Yeah, they're removed from the union, and then they can supervise union members, corporals and officers. They can administer discipline. They can participate in an internal investigation process, whereas the corporals and the officers are both in the union. Having the corporal assimilate some type of disciplinary or mentoring is a very difficult position when they're in the same union structure.
Yeah, I guess my question is, will they be out on patrol as well as the patrol officers?
Sergeants?
Yes.
8 of my 9 sergeants will always be on patrol.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 7 of the 9 will always be on patrol. I have an investigative sergeant, and eventually I will make an administrative sergeant for the department once the PSAP is consolidated.
So they aren't sitting back?
Oh, no, they're on the street supervising. Okay. I only have one that sits at a desk right now, and he's our detective sergeant.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Okay, I want to introduce Corporal Jason Schamberger. This is an example of one of the Jason's one of our future leaders here. As you all know, last week we retired his dog, but he's going to be giving a presentation on our body camera purchase. Jason is the corporal that I have picked to lead the Support Services Bureau in the absence of that lieutenant that I'm going to push to patrol.
Hello. One of my first assignments from Deputy Chief Slago for my new position was to research and manage the body camera program. Our body camera program is budgeted to update this fiscal year. The budgeted amount for this fiscal year is $44,000. A little bit background on our current body camera. Every sworn officer is issued their own body camera. This is the one we currently have. It's by a company called ProVision, and this is the model BC100. So during my research, a little bit about our current body camera program, the vendors that I looked at, different options, cost, recommendations, and where our next step should be. Like I mentioned, this is our current one. It's by ProVision. We got them last year, but the body camera technology is accelerating at a very fast pace, and so ProVision no longer sells this body camera. The current model, which is the BC300, has a lot more features that this current one does not, and I'll go over those. This here has the field of vision out of the body camera is 170 degrees, which is a lot. So if I had this on right now, we'd be able to see everyone in front of us. It's 170 degrees. You can see a lot with this body camera. It's still waterproof. Battery life, it says 4 to 16 hours, depending on how much you use it. Generally, this will get you through a full shift. 8 hours is about the max. And you can take still photos with your body camera. And you will be able to do that with the one that I recommend as well. These are all the different vendors I looked at. I looked at ProVision, Axon, which was called Taser. Now they're called Axon. I looked at Motorola, Panasonic, Patrol Eyes, and I still don't know how to pronounce that. I think it's Vivu. Those are all the different vendors I looked at. I looked at all their body cameras. So these are the ones I eliminated and the reasons why. The Vivu body camera, the span of view that you see out of your body camera is too small. It's only 95 degrees. Panasonic body cameras, too expensive. They're about $1,600 a pop. Patrol Eyes, good body camera, but their cloud-based software, which I'll get into, has limited capabilities. And Motorola, they've got a nice body camera, but it has no night vision capability. So if it's dark out, you're not going to see a thing. So I eliminated those. The two I sorted between are the newer model of this and Axon's body camera. On the left is the one I'm holding in my hand, BC100. On the right is the one that I want to go to, the BC300, and that's what that one looks like. Compared to, as far as the differences between what we currently have and what I propose that we buy, the span of view, it goes down a little bit, but it's a drop of 20 degrees. It's still 150 degrees of field of view in front of you, which is a lot. Our current body camera has night vision, but I'm going to show you a video. The field of view is not good when you're in night vision. Also, this is switch activated. So if I work the overnight shift and I go on a call and I want to turn on my night vision, I have to physically flick this little switch up. And I've got to remember to do that. And if you're in a high-stress situation where you're going to start losing your fine motor skills, I don't know if an officer is going to remember to do that. The new version of this is automatic. It's automatic night vision. You don't have to touch a thing. So if I come into a room and I know the light, let's say it's dark or the quality of the light goes down, the camera automatically switches to night vision and then automatically switches back to day vision if you go outside or into a well-lit room. The size is about the same. It will still take pictures, but it takes better pictures. The newer model does. 32 megapixel camera in it. This has 8 megapixel. And the size of the screen on the back is about the same. Essentially, Axon and ProVision, nearly the same type of camera. It's just Axon is way more expensive. That's why I recommend that we go with ProVision. So in the memo that everyone got a copy of, I bulleted the primary differences with the new camera that I propose we go to. Automatic night vision capabilities. The going from switch activated to automatic activation is huge. One new feature in all the body cameras is in the one that I propose we buy has this capability is pre-event recording. And what that is, we have this in our squad cars right now. I've been at the police department for 14 years, and we've had it the entire time I've been there. What pre-event recording is as soon as an officer activates their camera, either manually or by turning on their top lights, it automatically trips the in-car camera system. And so if it's on a traffic stop or something like that, and you have to go back and view that video actually starts 30 seconds before the camera was actually activated. So you get to catch what happened right before you turned on the camera system. It's called pre-event recording, and it's a vital capability of our camera system. It catches a lot of stuff, and that's what we need. The new model of this, the BC100, has that built into the camera, so you can build up to a 60-second buffer. So if you go back and look at body camera footage from this right now, your video is not starting until the officer hits start. On the new cameras, you hit start, the video is going to start up to 60 seconds before the officer had activated their camera. So you're going to catch stuff. You're going to be able to see a scene and what led to that officer activating their camera. The third bullet point, cloud-based technology, and this is another reason why we want to upgrade, is currently all of our body camera data is stored at the police department on a server. We support our own data. However, the server is almost full, and it's only been 9 months with these cameras. So we want to get away from hosting our own data, and a lot of these companies are going to cloud-based storage. So if the council approves and we get these cameras, the ProVision cloud-based software is called SecureMax. Currently, with these cameras, at the end of my shift, I'd have to plug it in, and I have to manually go in there and upload my body camera data onto the server. With the new cameras, they come with docking stations, and so all I would have to do at the end of my shift is take my camera, put it in the docking station. It's going to charge my body camera, and it's going to upload all my videos automatically. I don't have to do a thing. All I have to do is just remember to drop in the charging station. The SecureMax software, you can look at any of your body cam footage whenever you want. It meets all the CJIS compliant standards, and what CJIS is, it's Criminal Justice Information Services, which is a joint program by the FBI and every state's identification bureaus, and they provide security guidelines that everyone has to follow to protect sensitive information so no one hacks the website. So the security is there. I have been working with Dan Nichols, one of the network engineers that works out of our police department at times. He has personally called ProVision as well and talked to them about the technological aspect of what we need. And then the fourth bullet point is future-proof technology. So like I mentioned earlier, this camera that we currently use, it's a good camera, but the company's not selling it anymore. And one of my concerns were, well, because I asked them, if we invest in your company and get these new cameras, what's to say you're not going to have a new camera next year and we just wasted all this money, you know? So she said one feature of the body cameras, the new ones, is if there are software upgrades to the camera system, they are automatically, when the camera is in the docking station, if there's a software upgrade, it will automatically upgrade the body camera for you. So if there's a new feature down the road that they come up with, we don't have to buy a new camera. The software will automatically upgrade itself. And then the last bullet is the battery life. This is 8 hours max. The other one, the new one, is 12 hours. As far as the cost, because it's cloud-based technology, Provision charges a per camera per month fee. And there's 3 different data plans you can choose from: 100 gig of data per camera per month, 250 gig of data per camera per month, or unlimited data per camera per month. The fees for the 100 gig would be $45 per camera per month. 250 gig is at $60 per camera per month, and the unlimited data is at $70 per camera per month. Now, the way I've charted this out is currently there are standards of when we use our body cameras. If it's a domestic or a potential situation where we're going to want video evidence, and those are listed in the general order, we have to use our body cameras. Anything else outside of that, it's the officer's discretion. So like if someone comes up and asks me a question on the street, I probably won't turn my body camera on. But that's going to change down the road. We're going to require, with the chiefs, and the chief is going to obviously have to order this, but it's my understanding patrol officers will be using their camera a lot more than they currently are. Nearly every time they talk to anybody on the street, it's going to be recorded. So because of that, we don't know how much data the patrol division is currently going to use. So what I propose is we have 45 sworn officers right now. 32 of the 45 cameras would be given to the patrol division. Every officer on patrol would have their own camera. Every officer on patrol who gets one of the new body cameras would be on unlimited data, because we don't know how much they're going to use, and they're going to be using the cameras the most. The other 13 body cameras will go to people not working the street: investigators, command staff, support services. So people who are less likely to use their camera, they would be on 250 gig plans. I'll get into the Secure MX in a minute, but I want to get through the cost on this. The body cameras, we would have to enter into a 5-year agreement with Provision to use their cloud-based software. If we do that, the cameras are $200 each. So 45 of them, you're looking at $89.55. The 32 cameras that are given to patrol divisions, because they're going to be on unlimited data, and it's $70 for each camera per month. That $20,160 that's on that table there, that will get us through the end of the fiscal year. And the remaining 13 cameras, they would be on a cheaper data plan, so that's $780. And then we would have to buy 3 of the 10 block docking stations, because that's what's going to keep the cameras charged and get all the data uploaded, and those costs are listed in there as well. So the total cost would be $33,480, and that would get us all 45 cameras and have the data paid for through the end of the fiscal year. A couple things I want to show you. When I'm talking about the night vision capabilities on the new ones, I think it's important to have you guys actually get to see something here. Okay, the little box on the lower left, when I hit play, that is what our night vision will currently look like, and you'll get to see, it'll just be a circle like that. That's all you can see at night if you have your body camera on. The larger picture is going to be how the new cameras look. So that is on the lower left. On the lower right is what we currently see. On the left is how the new cameras would look. Yeah, you don't lose any field of view. It just switches to night vision. And this is not a real call. This is training. So as you can see, the technology has improved vastly. And then this other video I want to show you is the night vision, how it automatically switches. Again, this is just a training video. And I think it's important to point this out because it keeps the officers from having to think about this and switching back and forth. And this is full 1080p, high definition, Wi-Fi capabilities. And this is with the body camera, the chest mounted view. So when he goes into the, see how it's switched right there, automatically? You don't have to touch your body camera. You can keep your eyes focused on the call. And it switches back right here to regular vision and then switches back to night vision. So the camera knows when it needs to do that. So, any questions about the body camera program currently or the one that we're proposing?
Where is this made?
Byron Center, Michigan.
So it is a U.S. company.
Yes. And another reason why I went with, I'm wanting to go with Provision is every time you call them, they pick up right away. A couple of these other companies, it was weeks before I got anything back, but they're on the ball. And they also make in-car camera systems too.
One thing to add, we're going to be transitioning to a model policy for body-worn cameras in the very near future. The discretion the officers have right now, I think is good. We're going to narrow that discretion from them based on the types of contact, and we're going to mandate that they utilize the body camera more than they do now. And if we don't go to a cloud-based storage system and make these modifications, the data storage is just going to eat us alive.
And our current server will keep data up to 2 years. With the cloud-based storage, you can select for different call types how long you want them to retain that data. It could be from 1 day to forever. So when you're dealing with people, like if anyone wants to file a complaint, and let's say it happened 2-3 years ago, with this cloud-based data, you can still go back 3 years and pull that body camera footage.
How old is the current equipment?
How old is the current camera? A little over a year.
We've had them a little over a year.
But yes, and this is the second type of body camera we've had. One thing that I always brag about is that before all these events happen throughout the country with law enforcement and shootings and whatnot, I always tell people we had body cameras before any of that ever even started.
So what happens to our current equipment?
We would see if any other city departments would want to use them. Of course, they'd have to figure out how they're going to store their data at that point, but there is no buyback on these.
There's no buyback. Oh, yeah.
No, there's no buyback policy. We would see if any other city departments or employees would need them.
Would any other cities, smaller cities, might want to use
Sure.
Yeah, we have a procedure with the city where we could put them out on for other cities to purchase.
Yes.
And the one thing, it seems on the surface that, like, hey, we had a product for a year, now we're getting rid of it, that's wasteful. But the rationale is the cloud-based storage. The capabilities in cloud-based storage with body-worn cameras just wasn't there then, and that's where it really needs to go.
The fire department would be interested in using those also. We currently use some for our inspectors and for our fire marshal. So we do use them also.
Would it be the current ones or the new proposed ones?
The old ones.
So what I'm saying is,
We take the hand-me-downs.
It'd be,
We've always taken the hand-me-downs.
flip them over to the fire department and...
Yes, because it's not as critical for us, so we take the hand-me-downs. Definitely. They're very beneficial for us.
This is a budgeted item?
Yes, it is.
If one of those is taken off of you, is there security that keeps them from accessing what's in the camera itself?
No, because as soon as the camera's put in the docking station at the end of your shift, all the data is automatically uploaded to the cloud.
But if somebody got a hold of it, could they get the data out of it?
No, because it's automatically taken off the camera. Now, if someone loses it on duty and they haven't been back to the police department, that could be an issue.
That's what I'm asking, is if, you know, if somebody grabbed it,
Yeah, there's a screen on the back that you can play back on that body worn. So if we did lose control of it, yeah, they'd be able to look at what was on there.
yeah, I guess what I'm asking is there's no way like to remotely wipe it?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No.
Okay. And then, does that have image stabilization on it?
We're going to be
Yes.
going after that camera pretty hard, though, Joe. I promise you.
Yeah. When our very first body camera did not have that, so if I'm running after somebody and my camera flips this way, upside down, unfortunately my video was upside down, but that has since been fixed, so it does not matter if my camera is this way. When I look at the video, it rights itself.
Yeah. Do the big high-power flashlights, do they bother
No.
the cameras?
No.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
How's Lingo?
Oh, he's good. I took him to the vet yesterday.
Enjoying retirement?
Yeah, I had to tell the vet, hey, change the owner to me from the city. I said, they're like, oh, he needs some shots. I said, well, how much is that?
Not last week.
It's all yours now.
All mine now, so.
Well, I have another question. So
Yep.
it's continually every year, or there's a monthly fee. So what's the amount
For next fiscal year?
Yeah. So
Okay.
is that going to how much is that going to be every year?
It would be, I don't have the exact number, about 36,000
Per year.
per year. And that is with the 32 on the unlimited plan and the 13 on the 250 gig plan. If you switch the 13 also to unlimited next fiscal year, your budget requirement is only $1,000 more to do that.
Well, just what this saves in potential lawsuits.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It is amazing.
Yeah, there's like.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Engineering?
All right, for engineering, our first item is going to be item number 5. It's the presentation regarding the Albernette Road alignment study. So I'm going to have Troy Culver with Schneider and Associates come up and give that presentation. They're the consultants that we hired to do this study. Then you guys should have also have kind of a 11 by 17 that'll kind of go with it. All right, Troy.
Thanks, Mike. Your Honor, Counsel.
Welcome.
Thank you. I don't know about you, but that made me a little nervous watching that behind that gun. Made me thankful for the job I have, and not that one. Looks like we are. You're getting a look ahead. So Albernette Road, you're probably all familiar. Back in 2000, there was a study completed by others that kind of laid out the basic need for the Albernette Road extension. So when the city brought us on board, the assumption is the need has been established. I'm hoping the heads are nodding with that. Maybe it's a timing issue still when this is going to happen, but the need was not necessarily part of our work. Our work was primarily to take that study a bit further. This isn't a study on a study, but it was, on a project like this that involves so many aspects, environmentally, impacts to private property and such. We need to see what hurdles are ahead of us as we go into our preliminary design. So major players involved, of course, Dan and Mike and myself, and then wanted to make sure it's clear just how many entities get involved with a project this size. There's traffic. We're looking at a bridge, so there's hydraulics, hydrology, structural with the bridge, survey, geotechnical. We had some sub-consultants involved as well. Shuck Britson is our structural. They are a subsidiary of Snyder and Associates. So back in 2000, this is the gives you a visual illustration of some alignments that were looked at that time. It's a little bit unclear, but the two top red lines represent roadways that would tie into 8th Avenue. I wish my little, oh, it does work on there. So here, how do I let you guys see this? Can I do that on my screen somehow? So alignment 1, alignment 2, alignment 3. Alignment 3 was the selected alignment. There was quite a bit of public involvement. It was actually adopted by council, as I understand. We have a pretty good packet on that. So alignment 3, ties into 7th Avenue here. So here's the railroad bridge out there on Marion Boulevard or 7th Ave. Comes up 2nd Street, comes through the park, Willow Park, crosses Indian Creek, up through Bowman Meadows, which now you can see this is all, it's undeveloped in this photo, but there's homes here now. Crosses Boyson, runs up north through the old roadbed, and connects back to existing Alburnett Road here just south of Edinburgh. Is that how you pronounce that? So that's the extent of our project, 7th up to Edinburgh. The goals for the project: alleviate traffic congestion on 10th. Our traffic comes down and runs into 10th and then makes its way back out towards Cedar Rapids area. Reduce cutting through the residential areas. We heard several comments on that from the public about folks that are making their way through the neighborhoods adjacent near 2nd Street. Provide a north-south corridor for all the growth that's occurring, and then improve pedestrian bicycle access. Basically, we need a route that handles all of our different traffic needs, our mobility needs. So the several due diligence items, I'll go through this relatively quickly. Again, because of the complexity of the project, we have environmental items to consider. The little blue on here represents the wetlands that were identified right adjacent to the creek that we would have to deal with. We would need to, anything over half an acre of impact, you have to mitigate that. You have to create other wetlands or pay credits for that. Evaluated traffic, of course, a major component. We looked at 3 major intersections, starting at the south, the 7th, then block north at 8th, and then at Boyson. Those would be your major intersections. We looked at roundabouts and traditional traffic signals. In this case, the traffic signals were the preferred traffic control. Not always the case, but here it was. I could get into that detail, but with the proximity of the 7th and 8th intersections, we had queuing that backed traffic back up to 7th from 8th. That's definitely a problem. And then up at Boyson, we had space concerns. We would need 2 approaching lanes for our roundabout, and didn't really have the space for it there. So, and also the traffic signals functioned just fine. So the overall recommendation was signals at each of the intersections. The other thing the traffic told us was the number of lanes we would need, and the length of turn lanes and all those sorts of things. So the roadway section would be a 3-lane roadway section, 1 lane in each direction, center turn lane for most of the roadway. Other due diligence items, cultural resources. We check to see if we're impacting anything of significance in the past. So there were some items found. Maybe the most significant that I'd draw your attention to is this. How they found this, I have no idea. A Mattel Tommy gun from 1960s or something. I thought that was pretty interesting. I'm not sure how they would find such a thing. But no other items of significance there. And I don't know what happened to the gun, if they ended up taking that home or not. We do have a couple residences that are not on the National Register but are eligible. I have to admit, I scratch my head a little bit when I look at this, and I can read from the report. I think I may have left it at my desk there, why these are significant, but they are eligible. So probably what we would need to do is mitigate in some way these residences. The mitigation could be as simple as putting literature in the library that has pictures of the house. I should explain, these are 2 residences that would need to be torn down associated with the project. One the city owns, which is the water department house on the top. The one below is called the Dennis Steffes house. It's on 8th Avenue, or on 2nd Street, just north of 8th Avenue. So the mitigation could be as simple as documentation, that these homes existed and this is why they were significant, all the way to the homes need to be relocated. We don't see that being the issue here, but it's an item that we have to address. So getting into more of the engineering related, we did look at a couple different alignment options here. It's a little difficult to see there, but the kind of blue purple, this is very near what was proposed originally. We also looked at an alignment here. That's showing up for you guys too. Okay. We looked at another alignment. We did settle back on the original one. There was several factors involved: cost, impacts to other properties, environmental, but we reinforced to the staff that the original alignment proposed is the preferred alignment. It aligns our bridge better with the creek, which decreases costs. The grade is better, many reasons. Again, this shows the extent of our project, 7th up to Edinburgh. I will show, you can see the development that's occurred out in Bowman Meadows. This street was in place when our work began. Since that time, the street through here has been constructed by the developer, and the developer then, and we'll get into this later, but they're responsible for their street through their development. Traffic study told us the lanes that we would need. This gives an illustration of the cross-section of the roadways that we would use throughout the corridor. We have 44-foot back-to-back with a 2-way left turn lane, the twiddle. So again, just 1 lane each direction. We have a potential for bike lanes included on pavement, along with 8-foot side paths on each side. Those are recommendations that came out of your bicycle master plan that was prepared recently and then updated in 2015 or so. So the recommendation is to maintain bike lanes throughout the corridor, maintain the side paths throughout the corridor. We do have the opportunity potentially to narrow from the 8-foot down if the city chooses in some isolated spots. Where we will have turning movements, we'll have the open twiddle. There are locations where we have no turning movements needed, so the recommendation that we have is to put a median in that, dress it up, and it helps with your slowing your speeds and provides a little friction for the traffic. At the north end of the project, it was determined that so north of Boyson, and I'll show you that here in a little bit. We determined, just as potential cost savings and just to save space, we have limited room up there, and there won't be any turning movements in that location if it develops how the city believes it will develop. We can actually do just a straight 2-lane roadway in that situation. Don't need the twiddle. This gives you an illustration, and again, I'm following pretty close with your report. A lot of this is in the report. So this is at the south end of the project. Maybe the primary features to bring out, the gray represents potentially new pavement areas. So kind of here's 8th, here's 7th, Marion Boulevard. I don't know what we call that, 10th or 2nd? I'm always confused with that 2nd. And then, running through the park. So we're looking at some new pavement extending or some overlay onto 8th. We'll use as much of that pavement as we can. Again, we're showing the signal here at 7th, signal at 8th, And running north, the green here, you can kind of see there'd be some medians. Most of these other areas are the twiddle situation, the two-way left turn. We shifted this stretch of Second to the west. The city, as you know, owns the water department property here. Then there's a buyout property here at the corner, northwest corner of 8th and 2nd Street. And then this is the Steffes house that had the potential for being on the National Register. It would be a buyout property as well. And then there's a kind of an odd-shaped property here. There'd be a little bit of acquisition. We'll get into acquisitions later. But then the city owns all the park, of course. So shifting the street to the west a bit kept us from impacting those properties on the east side as much. Across the creek, running through the Bowman Meadows just gives you a better illustration of what that would look like. So here it shows that street that they constructed. This would be the extent of that in the Bowman Meadows area. Again, this stretch through here would be the responsibility of the developer. Their property line actually runs right to the edge of the bridge. I think there'll probably be some negotiation involved with how that works, as they're approaching that bridge. Are they responsible for all the dirt work, all the roadway? I think that you probably have some precedent there. Definitely probably responsible for the street. The dirt work might be an item to talk a little bit about. The north end of the project, so north of Boyson, here's Boyson going north, our 2-lane roadway. We're kind of pinched on the west side by development. We may have to shift a little bit to the east. This is a kind of a poor illustration. I had to do it last minute there, just showing that we're probably going to block off. We're going to demo some existing Albernet, and so traffic in the future running north on existing Albernet would not access the new Albernet Road at this location. They would be turning at Boyson. We don't want to have another connection at that spot. I think that was outlined in the 2000 study as well. These are some illustrations of just some kind of ancillary items discussed. Water department accesses, maybe moving them around a little bit. We met with the park department and park board and looked at some ways to maybe provide some parking for the ball field. I think I have an illustration later that shows that. This is the Novak and Brannon Monument parking area. We want to get, if you're familiar, that parking is right off the street, so they pull in and would back out right out on our street, which wouldn't be a good situation for our minor arterial. We'd look at building a parking lot there off the street. We looked at also maybe cul-de-sacking Second right off the park. So this would be New Albernet Road. I'll show you a better illustration of that later. This gives you an idea of acquisitions potentially needed with the project. The pink or whatever that is our potential, is the right-of-way for the project. The blue are our acquisition needs. Keep in mind that all these acquisition needs on city property here, we're showing just maybe one department to the other. Or these would be, these are temporary construction needs in blue, temporary construction needs in blue, and right-of-way acquisition needs in red. So anything on the city property, of course, would be relatively easy, but you can see there's little bits of acquisition needs along the corridor. North of the bridge, again, some right-of-way, fee title acquisition there, probably as part of their plating. Then at the north end, a strip of acquisition on the east side, out of that undeveloped property. Some temporary needs on the other side. So when we got into the details of the design on the bridge, I won't bore you with that. You can read that. It'll definitely put you to sleep in the report. But we have a bridge just upstream from us right here at Central that was installed 10 years ago, something like that. We have a bit of a pinch point there. So one item I want to bring up to this group is the installation of a bridge at our alignment requires by doing that, you can imagine we are constricting the flow of Indian Creek a bit. Anytime you install a bridge, you're building berm, roadway up to that. In a 100-year situation, when that water used to just spread out according to this blue area, it's restricted to go under the bridge. And by doing that, it creates backwater upstream. We have rules that we play by. We have to keep that backwater below a certain elevation, and that will thus require us to install a culvert under Central, just north of that existing bridge. It's just, it helps us to, because the backwater that our new bridge is creating impacts the Central Avenue Bridge, because it's very restricted at that location right here. Just a design detail. This is a section of the bridge. We would have 2 lanes across the bridge. We would have, of course, our side paths would continue across the bridge, side paths on each side, here and here. The bridge type was determined to be a pre-stressed concrete bridge, similar to your 29th Ave construction overall, if you were to look at the actual construction of it. This illustration in the lower corner this represents the creek. This shows your flood staging. So in we call it a 5-year storm. So you have a 20% chance storm. The water is just leaving your creek. So you have a 20% chance every year for the water to leave that creek and go up into the park. Your 100-year storm, or it's actually a 1% storm. So every year you have a 1% chance of having this storm. That is represented by the top blue line here, and that storm would actually produce flow that would overtop new Alburnett Road during just that peak time. It would overtop it by a few inches. So any storm up to that is maintained below that elevation. So I want to make sure, and certainly we can solve anything with money, or this type of thing with money, but that's a balance that we would work through during the design development stage. Another illustration of the bridge, maybe just the key points are we're going to have potential for trail to run under the bridge on both sides. Again, this just illustrates that we're a little ways along in the design of the bridge. I want you to know what you're getting for your dollars spent here on the fee side. So we did look at some amenities associated with it, and we took all this to the public and had folks give us some input on all this. A lot to be determined yet, but one of the several key things that come out, we want to consider water quality. We want this corridor to be kind of have more of a neighborhood feel. We don't want this to just be a stark environment. So these are just some ideas that we had thrown out there for people to consider. Everything from hardscapes at our intersections, pavers and things, dress that up, come up with a theme for that. We have some landscape buffer areas, especially through the park, to separate the uses of the park from this arterial roadway. This gives you in the top right here, gives you a better illustration. So this is heading kind of north, going from town out kind of north. So it gives you an idea of what this could look like with some water quality features down here, capturing the water, trails that connect and go under the bridge. So to go from one side of the park to the other, you would go under the bridge potentially, or to the intersection with Second. More just intersection enhancement ideas that the public was involved with reviewing. Our street lighting theme that you have, or the design that you use, would just be carried throughout. A little broader picture there showing the park. Wasn't in our scope to discuss the trailhead, but when we met with the park, they indicated they have some plans in the works to move that structure, the restroom facility that's out there. And so certainly it'd be a great opportunity to connect whatever theme we're using in with what they're doing. Again, just some ideas, just showing that the park can really function how it's functioning today, even though we're putting a road right through the middle of it, which is a big deal. But there are some separate uses in the park, being the ball field, and then, of course, kind of more the play area that we really don't have a significant impact on. Some bridge enhancements, we talked about just considering what we would want to do there. This shows how our trail would narrow, carry our pedestrians over. We can do all kinds of things with bridge rail. We have to spend money on it. We might as well make it look great. And again, carry that through. The city could even ask the developer to, in the Bowman Meadows area, to maybe incorporate some of that into their project. These are projects that we've done some form liners on down in Iowa City, southeast part of town. We have a form liner on the bridge, just dresses that up a little bit. Pretty low cost item, but makes it look nice. Now, dollars. Everybody's wondering about dollars. So I know the city, there's some money accounted for in the CIP budget. I'm an engineer. I'm pretty conservative with our dollars, and we're at the concept, almost preliminary stage. So we provide I think it's the back page of your report, this engineer's opinion of probable cost. Keep it pretty simple on the items. We have a pretty detailed list separate from this that I reviewed with city staff, but this gives you a general idea of where those dollars would go. Under miscellaneous, that's probably the one that is most confusing. There's things like mobilization for the contractor, some amenities associated with the project, that sort of thing.
But this does not include acquisition of properties, nor its their demolition.
That is correct.
So that could be another.
That is correct. It does not include acquisition costs. Yep.
These plans are pretty far along. I mean, they're not final, we can't build off of these, but these are pretty in-depth. When Troy put together the cost estimate, if you look at it, there's a contingency of $1 million in there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's some buffer in there. This is still a very important project to move forward. I believe in the original CIP, we had $6.3 million. Now we're at 9.4. So, I mean, this is still an important project that we need to move forward with. It's probably not something we're going to build all at once. We're going to build it in stages anyways. I think we only have maybe $2 million in the current CIP. So, I mean, we need to just take it piece by piece and get it built. It's a very important north-south street, so I don't want that big number to scare you guys away.
Right. Certainly, it's a project that can be broken into pieces, and we would recommend that. The culvert that needs to be built on Central, do some work up north on the area north of Boyson. There are relatively straightforward ways to phase the project that I think you could fit into your reasonable CIP budget.
And I believe Dan started negotiations with one property owner already.
Currently purchased the property at the northwest corner of 8th and 2nd Street. We would have some purchase costs for the property that the water department owns, the building relocation. The north property, the Steffes property, is probably in the $200,000 range. The other parcels that we need would probably get us in that $500,000 range for acquisitions. So it's a big number, but it's not a big number compared to what the rest of the project looks like. So, but
total
Mike,
acquisitions.
I want to express, pardon.
Total acquisitions would,
yes,
would be in the $500,000.
Yeah, it's kind of I would say a minor part of the project based on costs. So, and I just want to express too that what Mike says is that the project is buildable. The numbers are very conservative, so don't get really tied down to the numbers because we're very early in this project. As we move forward, we'll be able to value engineer the project and make it a lot cheaper.
So just a few items on the next steps there. The buyouts, sounds like that's well on its way. It was actually encouraging when folks came in. The people that own those residences seemed very anxious to keep going. They seemed informed. You all have done a good job of keeping this project out there. It's 17 years old or whatever, but everybody seem to be aware, or the folks that were impacted there seem to be aware of the project. So phasing the project, considering themes, if we're going to do that, what that would involve, and make sure all the stakeholders have a voice in it, initiate some preliminary design, and then get those individual acquisitions started. There'd be a little bit of negotiation with your Bowman Meadows folks. Bridge, of course, typical stuff. We have some other work to do on the borings and preliminary design, but and again, your theming there, carry that through. Environmental, we're well on our way there. We've completed the environmental report. There'd just be some applications with the jurisdictions or with the regulatory agencies to make, and probably put together a mitigation plan and how we're going to address the impacts to wetlands. That is it. Any questions? I would encourage you to look through that report. It is, I'm still calling it draft at this point. If there are some items that you wish us to expand on, or any tweaks to make to that, I would encourage you to maybe to send that through Mike. Is that appropriate?
Yeah. And then there's more than just this. We have reams of paper of the environmental and stuff that they've produced for us as well. Yep. So I mean, this is, we don't want you, right. You guys know how big your packets are already, so we weren't going to give you all that information.
Yeah. There's been a lot of engineering done. I want to make sure that's clear. A lot of engineering done associated with this work. The bridge is well on its way. The roadway alignment, we've surveyed. We've done a lot of work. Typical engineering work. So it's a project that's ready to roll when you all are ready to do it.
Thank you. Other questions?
I was just curious what factors caused it to go up to 9.4.
What caused it to? I would say, and I reviewed that pretty thoroughly with Mike and Dan here in the last few days. We include things like amenities associated with the bridge. Certainly, I don't know when your CIP numbers were put together, but the contingency number we have in there, 1.1 million. Mike was giving me some of their unit price numbers that they see on some of their work, and we do work around the city as well, but we don't want to be the low bidder at this point. So I believe it's probably more than the 6.3, but I know we can build it for less than that. I think just like any project, you dig into it. We didn't know we needed that culvert. These guys didn't know that. We have a budget in there for some utility work. I think about $250,000 or $300,000 of utility work that they probably didn't include. It's, do we need to replace this water line? Mm-hmm. Some of that will come out of different funds, be reimbursed to this fund. So I think all of those, once we narrow it in, I think we're going to be pretty close, to be quite honest, to that number. I think I was happy when I saw their number. I didn't see that one initially, but when I came across it, I'm like, okay, I feel better. Because that was big to me too when we got there.
Questions?
So with 2nd Street, there's the two options, doing the cul-de-sac or bringing it through.
Right, so here maybe, so we looked at maybe cul-de-sacing this street right here. Right.
There'd probably be some cost savings there, I would assume, if you make a cul-de-sac instead of having turn lanes. And
it would be, we would probably maintain, there would be some cost savings. It would be somewhat minimal, I would say. We'd probably have more pavement in the cul-de-sac than in the 2nd Street as it is, but we would eliminate some pavement out here, like you say, for a turn lane. This median could continue through. I think the biggest thing associated with that, what we heard was potential for a trailhead to be developed in this. There's a parking lot here, sure. And if they expand their facilities and want to put a trailhead. And
was there feedback from people that lived around there at the meeting about what they would prefer to see?
Some prefer for it to be a cul-de-sac to stop the cut-through traffic. Some of them didn't like that because then for parking, and then you'd have to cross Albernet Road versus having, we would potentially build a parking lot on the south side of the Ball Diamond. So you can park there and go to the Ball Diamond, so there is kind of two uses there. So you got kind of a mixed bag, and we actually presented to the park board as well, to see what they wanted. And we really didn't get a clear indication of which one they would prefer. As far as the street network, they both work. So it's one of those things we just have to.
And the cut-through traffic should significantly reduce, given this new connection.
Would that, but if you created a cul-de-sac on Second, would that cause the cut-through to go to Ninth instead of going out to Eighth?
Potentially.
Ninth is connected. I mean, is there any thought of not connecting Ninth into it?
I think we did draw something up for that, but we didn't pursue it, just thinking we wanted to keep our street network relatively in place.
I mean, most of the cut-through is going to be those that are north of Boyson that are coming. And so once they get on Alberta and are coming south, then there should be less cut-through. There's always going to be some that are closer that are in that network, but that's the hope, is building that arterial street and getting them north-south on Albernet instead of, nobody wants to go clear to 10th and wait through the traffic signals, and it's not built for that. They're going to cut through the
And then
residential
go back.
neighborhood.
Yeah, and probably mostly residents cutting in there, cutting through, yeah.
Other questions, comments? Yes, sir.
Yep, I'm back. We're training tonight, so. I just want to add that it's staff's recommendation and hopefully our intent that once this is approved, we'd like to jump, right into the project, get something moving forward, start a segment of this. Of course, with council direction of that, but it is our intent to move forward with acquisitions and maybe setting up a first phase or something like that with, like I said, with council approval.
So is there something, we have to actually approve this?
Yeah, you'll be adopting it on Thursday, unless you decide to wait. So.
Would you think you'd start from the north end or the south end?
We really haven't looked at that. There's an opportunity to do the bridge. One of the things that's connected with the bridge is we've done a lot of pre-work for that permitting. If you wait too long with that, then you lose that momentum with the Corps and everybody. It'd be nice to go ahead and get the bridge built, and then we could actually funnel traffic through a temporary connection to 2nd Street. There's a lot of things we can do that would make sense.
Other comments? So there will be a motion to adopt this plan?
There's a motion to receive and file it.
Receive and file, is that adopting, or is that's just receiving and filing?
We've technically already adopted the alignment.
Oh,
We
so
haven't
that
changed
was
the
adopted by council years ago?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are we going to be acting on?
The wording of that resolution could be about anything at this point. We just did it as receive and file now, but if council is ready, we could go ahead and adopt the report and the plan, or we could bring it back in its final form, which would allow you to do it at that time.
So this is not final form?
It's a final draft.
I consider it final unless you all say, hey, we were hoping you would expand on this issue. I believe we've addressed the things that we were.
Yeah, without any council direction to make any changes, it would be final.
And I assume it's your recommendation that it be adopted in this form? Okay.
If you're ready to do that, we'll change that on Thursday.
Question?
Yeah, you said that there was a study done and recommendations done that the council passed in 2000. How much does this differ from that?
None.
None?
The alignment is virtually exactly the same. We've not changed anything from that study.
I think you're mistaken.
The alignment within the subdivision to the north has changed based on lot layout, but other than that, it's exactly the same.
Well, I was on the council in 2000, and boy, I don't remember this much acquisition and expense.
We've expounded on it and expanded the scope of it, but the original alignment set by council is exactly the same.
The detail wasn't done yet, the detailed work,
Yeah,
and
right.
to figure out exactly how much acquisition is needed and all of that.
I don't know what
Okay.
one council does, one councilman does.
Well, I mean, I think we've been talking about this project forever. I think it's to me, it's maybe not as important, but almost as important as the Central Corridor project. It is a major thoroughfare. That the growth to the north is not going to stop. It's not going to slow down. The traffic that bottles up at 10th Street because you have two major arterials meeting there, and then everybody trying to get through the downtown, the stoplights with the very short distances between the streets get backed up, and then people that are on Alburnett Road that are trying to get to 7th Avenue rather than having to come downtown and then go right and then go back down to where they need it to be, are weaving through that little neighborhood.
I do it.
I do it too. It's not going to get. We have to keep in mind that this is like they said, it's phased. We've been talking about it for 17 years. Is that what you said? And we're planning for not next year or 5 years from now. We're planning for 10 and 20 and 30 years from now, a community that's going to be 50,000 and 60,000 people with a lot more traffic. If we don't get started now on creating those arterials and creating the infrastructure, then we are going to have a problem where our quality of life is going to be impacted by the traffic. This is why you have planning, and you get ahead of the problems so that you minimize the impact.
Mayor, I might add one to that.
Yeah.
From the engineering perspective, it's not uncommon for us to look ahead and lay out roadways like this and build something maybe ahead of the curve a bit. In this instance, our traffic analysis tells us that we need traffic signals installed with the design, with the first year build. It's not uncommon for a project like this to say, well, we don't really justify a new signal at this intersection yet, but we think 5 years, 10 years from now we're going to need it. In this instance, we need those now. So that does tell us that we're not way out in front of this deal.
Right. What you're saying is it's really needed now.
Yeah, in 2000, maybe we were out in front of it, but those areas have filled in. So, from an engineering perspective, that tells you something there.
Yeah.
We looked at this when we were doing the Central Corridor project and found the impact that this realignment causes to our uptown and the quality of life in our uptown. We're going to pull a lot of traffic from 10th Street and from the uptown area that will improve our pedestrian friendliness, just our overall environment of our uptown. So it's even important for that, not alone just the network. So.
Other comments or questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so that was item 5 and 6. If you guys are comfortable with it, we can change item 6. Instead of a motion to receive and file, we can adopt the new alignment if you guys want us to give that direction.
That's not finalizing.
It's not final plans. There'll still be final plans.
Right. So like the cul-de-sac on Second, that's
Right.
all. Yeah. Okay.
All right, then the next one is 7 and 8. So 7 is going to be a public hearing on Thursday, setting the access fees for the 2015 Winslow Road realignment project. So this is from Tower Terrace to the old Winslow Road, next to where the YMCA is going to be built, that section of Winslow. East of 10th Street.
Yep.
Not the reconstruction portion of Winslow, the new Winslow.
Okay. Questions on that?
Figure out where it's
I'm
at.
still trying to figure out where that's at. What section you're talking about? So you're talking about.
There's Tower Terrace.
Right.
The bridge that we need to build on Tower Terrace.
Right.
Tower Terrace ends right here. Winslow.
I thought you were saying the old one. I'm sorry. So the new section of Winslow.
The new
Okay.
section of Winslow.
That I knew. Gotcha. I'm good.
Okay. Questions?
next one, 9 and 10. So same thing, we'll have a public hearing. This is regarding Tower Terrace. That's directly connected to that portion of Winslow. So that's from 10th east to where it ends for the future bridge. And so again, it's just setting the actual access fees by ordinance. So you always have a public hearing first. Any questions on that one? F11 is establishing the speed limit on 35th Avenue as 35 miles per hour. We've talked to Lynn County, and they're okay with this. There's some joint jurisdiction in different areas of it, and they're okay with just having it the same thing throughout.
What is it now?
55 on some of the gravel sections that are county.
Really? Oh.
But with it being developed, we have this development going in right here. We have a section of Morris's development coming in over here. The church is coming in over here. It just makes sense to have a consistent speed limit the whole way.
All right.
So that's just the first on that one. All right, next is so items 14, 15, and 16 are actually going to be taken off the agenda. We've actually already established those stop signs by resolution. Those can be removed. So F14, F15, and F16.
Stop signs.
Step?
Those are not stop signs.
Yeah, you have a different.
Change numbers. You already take them off. You might have already taken them off.
12 and 13 are stop signs.
Oh, that's right. If it's already taken off.
Here you go, Mike. You need one?
Next is discussion on our stormwater utility fees.
There you go.
So for that, Steve Cooper's going to come up and have a talk about that.
Good evening.
Good evening. See if I can get this going back. How do we shut this off? I'm trying to open up what we had before. Where's the file open? Back to. Not even sure where the for a moment, if I can remember where I put this thing. There it is. Okay. A few months ago, it was proposed to take a look at our stormwater utility fees and possibly increase them. Council directed staff to take a look at this a little further, put a committee together with certain members. Councilman Brandt, Councilman Draper were in on that committee. Medco had a representative on that. Someone from my stormwater advisory committee was on there, as well as a representative that was recommended from Uptown Marion. So, or Chambers, something like that. But there were 5 members on that committee, so we all met. I gave a presentation to them, got their feedback on what to do. The recommendations are going to be later in this presentation. I'm going to try to blow through this pretty quickly. This presentation is pretty much exactly what I gave a few months ago, but I kept a lot of the slides in there in case at the end you wanted to go back and take a look because you had questions, so I'll just go through this as briefly as I can and get to the end. The purpose of the stormwater utility, there's an increased burden of cost on stormwater management features that we have for, whether it be for water quality, stormwater regulations from the EPA and the DNR, anything that we have to do, that our burden of cost is increasing every day on these, and so we have to have a better revenue source for that. Our current stormwater utility fee is based on equivalent runoff unit, which is a typical residential house has 2,791 square feet of impervious surface area, so that's 1 ERU. This is the different variety of residential parcels that we have in Marion, lots of shapes and sizes. We have 2 types of stormwater utilities. That is the residential, that is single-family residence up to a 4-plex, and then everything else is non-residential, commercial, industrial, multiple unit residential parcels. These blue polygons are what we use to determine the impervious surface area for those non-residential parcels, the square footage of that. We put it through a calculation like this. The non-residential is that impervious surface square footage divided by that 2,791 square feet, and that is the ERU rate. That's for that. 1 ERU is $1.59 plus a $3.33 administrative fee. Residential is $4.92 a month, and non-residential is based on bigger or smaller for a bigger fee for a bigger parcel, obviously. In July of 2016, Cedar Rapids changed their stormwater utility significantly, which is giving us a reason to take a look at ours to see if we can keep up with the Joneses, make sure that our rates here in Marion are up to date with Cedar Rapids. They also maxed out, or they're phasing out their maximum fee, so their big industrial parcels are going to pay a little bit more of their fair share in Cedar Rapids. So looking at it here in Cedar Rapids, or in Marion, what was proposed before was a 5% increase across the board for all stormwater utility fees. What that would do is bring the residential rate up from $4.92 a month to $5.17 a month, which is still less than what Cedar Rapids has, $5.48, which is what I'm paying because I live in Cedar Rapids. So it's still lower or cheaper to live in Marion than it is in Cedar Rapids. The non-residential properties, most of those, about 85%, would see a less than $2 per month increase in their stormwater utility fees. The bigger parcels, though, there are 14 that are affected by this: Hy-Vee, Linn-Mar, Collins Road Square, Walmart. What was proposed before was a 2-year phase-out that was kind of a custom-made phase-out from their individual ERU rates, their square footage. This, what was recommended by the committee, and the majority of the committee, or the general consensus, was that a 5% across the board increase in the stormwater utility fee is fair, and let's try to match Cedar Rapids on phasing out of the maximum fees and getting rid of that cap and having the larger parcels pay a little more of their fair share. So this is how we could potentially phase out that maximum by setting it in like what Cedar Rapids does, 100 for the first year, 200, 300, and then eventually no cap after 5 years. And of course, each of the property owners would be notified prior to this increase to let them know, hey, this is what we're doing. This, I wanted to show you the full spreadsheet that I put on this of those 14 maximum accounts, and I'm going to zoom in on them because last time that I did this, couldn't really read them. There's goofy things with the visibility here. So I color-coded it based on the fiscal year that they would be phased out. The first year would be the Lundale Manor Mobile Home Park and LL Pelling. They're both at about 100 anyway, so they would max out. Their phase-out would be after the first year in fiscal year 18. Fiscal year 19, there's 8 that would phase out, and those are all those that are in blue right there. And really, the ultimate thing here with a 5-year phase-out is that it really benefits only the biggest 4 parcels, which are the 3 biggest mobile home parks and Linn-Mar High School. So this is how they would phase out. Basically, this is kind of a custom-made phase-out for those 4 maximum parcels anyway. So Squaw Creek Village would phase out after 2020. Yes Companies, which is Marion Village off of 35th Street, that they and Eagle Ridge would phase out, and then ultimately Linn-Mar High School would phase out in fiscal year '22. So that's the details of how that phase out would work for those 14 maximum parcels. It was brought up by a committee member, maybe we should charge each of the individual mobile homes in Marion the single ERU, the one ERU residential rate. So I took a look at that. Here's an aerial photo of all those addresses. This is Lindale Manor, north of what used to be Kmart. Here is that Marion Village. There's lots of, all of those individual numbers in there are the individual units, the mobile homes that are in there. This is Eagle Ridge, lots of addresses, and that's Squaw Creek Village, again, lots of addresses. Turns out that there's more than 1,400 individual mobile homes in Marion. They don't each get their own utility bill. There's one meter that serves the whole facility that goes to the main office, and then it's a private water line after that. So each individual mobile home doesn't actually pay their own water bill. They pay the rent, and then each village pays the water bill and adjusts rents accordingly to that. Manufactured home parks are actually specifically designed in the stormwater utility ordinance as non-residential, so that would changing something with that would be a big change to the ordinance, and a special billing system would have to get set up to bill those 1,400 plus units every 2 months, like on a water bill cycle. So it mostly infeasible to actually do the mobile home parks individually. So why do we need additional revenue from the stormwater utility? Well, like what you were saying, most of the growth to the north there on Albernet Road. This red dotted line there is a part of a watershed that serves Marion. That's where we are growing. And in order to manage that stormwater, we're going to need funds to be able to design, construct, and maintain different stormwater features in there, like detention basins. The green blob at the bottom is that regional public detention basin that serves that area right now, but as that area grows, that's 1,400 acres in there. As more hard surfaces, roads, sidewalks, driveways, houses get built in there, we have to hold back that water. It takes money to design and construct that, and then ultimately to maintain that, because most of those detention basins will be maintained by the city. Additionally, there's these resources like there's an organization at UNI called GeoTree that does geographic analysis. There's a model called ArcSlam. It's a lot of gory technical details, but it basically models watersheds. And there's a staff of people and students up at UNI that go through, they've already done it right now for one watershed that serves Marion. This is in Indian Creek, where they go around, they draw polygons around every surface in that watershed and identify what kind of surface is it. Is it grass? Is it pavement? Is it a building? What is the pitch of the roof? Is it flat? Is it steep? So they have students that model all of that and come up with analysis like this around the Lindale Mall area. Each drainage area, what is the load? What is the stormwater load? What are the pollutants that are in that area? And where do we need to have more stormwater best management practices to hold that back and improve water quality and reduce flooding? This is tens of thousands of dollars to be able to do this kind of modeling, which would be really very valuable for the city of Marion or anybody that would like to go through this kind of modeling. Here are the revenue, going back to money. This is what we have generated in revenue over the last 3 years from our stormwater utility. And the last slide here is potentially, with this increase to the stormwater utility, this is what we could be bringing in over the next 5 years with an increase in the stormwater utility. So that is my presentation. I will take questions if you have any. Thank you very much.
So the money is set aside for specific uses for stormwater
There
management.
are specific stormwater uses that we would use this money for, yes.
Did you change anything with the credits?
Credits are still the same. Each non-residential parcel is eligible up to 65% off of their bill if they have both stormwater quality and quantity holding that back. And then if they put something else in there like bioswales, pervious pavers, if they have additional resources or additional practices on there, they can cut back their stormwater utility fee by 65%.
So this is part of the thing that is on the water bill every 2 months?
Right.
Okay. Now, that's gotten to be a pretty hefty amount, right?
The revenue from the last 3 years, from just this year, almost $1 million, yes.
Okay. Now, nobody can get in and touch that and have it moved to another area to be spent, right?
That's my understanding.
Put that in writing?
That is my understanding.
Because
Doesn't administer the
that
funds.
just seems to me that would be an easy way to, have a major project done. And
Well, if you look at your total revenue, you're not talking a lot of dollars that this increase is going to get. I mean, you
no,
look at
the
your
increase
numbers,
I'm not
it's
worried about. It's
Yeah.
the amount that's there.
Can you break down the difference between what Limar's paying today and what they'll be paying at their max?
Yeah, that's what this, right up here, ultimately, they would wind up paying just over $1,100 a month. But that wouldn't be until fiscal '22.
And what are they right now?
$156 a month. And still, the fees that they pay for their 2 schools in Cedar Rapids are significantly higher than what they would pay here in Marion. So they're still getting a deal compared to our neighbors. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can you give us an example of a project where this money has been used? I mean, just so that we can
Sure, so
have
some of
a
the projects.
concrete example.
Sure, a good example would be when we did South 11th Street, we didn't have enough money to do the entire project. So the box culvert that's built underneath the street was actually paid for by stormwater utility funds. We do a drain tile and storm sewer project where we go in and put drain tile in on the back of curb, and then we have all the sump pumps tied into it so that Ryan doesn't have to deal with ice issues all winter. I mean, there's projects that we do every year.
Okay. It's just good to have examples for people to see how it's being used. And okay, good.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I guess if you guys, that's the discussion. If you guys are willing to move forward, we could draft the new ordinance and get that moving, unless you guys had major concerns with what's being proposed. That's because our recommendation is that of the 5-year phase out of the ERUs, of the max one.
Okay.
All right, item 16, now that I get my items correct. This is to receive and file a TAC report regarding no parking on Mulberry Drive. This is a request that we got. Robbins Road here. Mulberry Drive. And basically their concern is this area right here that people are parking. There's the stop sign here. There's actually a fire hydrant here, which no one is supposed to park in front of. That's not here. And so, basically, per city ordinance, you're not supposed to park within an intersection or 10 foot from the intersection. And so, there's about 50 foot of stacking that they could park in here that would still allow cars to park there. So that's our recommendation, is to leave it as is. If you guys want to do something different, we're willing to do that. We just want to make sure that you guys are all in favor of that before we rile up the residents and get them all out here to add no parking if that's the case. Because we've done this before where you guys want us to proceed with the no parking, and you get a couple people in here and then you back down.
So this is one person or multiple people that have asked?
This one actually had a petition.
Yeah.
And had several that signed it. But some also redacted from that petition because they didn't want their neighbors to know that they had signed it.
How many run the petition? In favor of no parking.
These are in favor of no parking.
For how far back from the stop sign?
They basically,
They said all the way to the road.
this area in here.
The next road.
Because of one property owner.
Because of one property owner? What is it?
Like this property owner. So you have 1, 2,
I don't-
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 that weren't redacted. Several that were redacted. See here, they're specifically calling out the homeowners of 3101 Mulberry Drive.
They don't want that homeowner to park on the street.
Correct. They have a F-250 large extended cab truck often with a trailer parked in the street.
And your recommendation is to deny it?
Our recommendation is with the stop sign here, they're not supposed to be parking within 10 foot of that stop sign. They're not supposed to be parking within 10 foot of this intersection. So it leaves about 50 foot of gap in there that one could park there. So our recommendation is leave it and enforce it how it is. But if you guys are willing to go forward with more than that, that's your guys' choice.
I mean, is it creating a problem? Is it creating a safety issue? Is it creating, what's the?
I think there's the petition, I think they're saying it is.
Yeah, but I mean, in the staff's perspective, is there an issue? I know what the homeowners are saying, but
yeah, talking with planning and fire department, same thing as kind of doing the current parking restrictions and just making it more known that parking is not supposed to happen next to the fire hydrant, next to the stop sign, next to the intersection.
Is it 10 feet from the intersection of, was it East Robbins? Or 10 feet from the stop sign?
I'd have to defer to legal on that.
What did fire say, Mike?
From the stop sign?
Just so the council's aware, I live in this area and I was approached on the petition, and I get out of that intersection every morning. The issue that I see is that, and Ryan can probably tell me if I'm wrong, but that when you're stacked in the wintertime, the traffic backs up during peak hour. If you get stopped on that small hill, you slide south, or I'm sorry, east, into the line of traffic. So if someone's turning, you slide down into that. So having the no parking back a ways is a good idea. You know, I looked at it, the fire hydrant's there. That's the big issue that I see. I think
the way the roadway's configured, Tom calls us more than anybody, but we have to get out there and put some material down, sand, snow plow it. With public service, we always support no parking, so that's kind of a standing thing with us. The more no parking you have out in the street on one side, the easier it is for us to do the job. So in this case, I would like to see no parking, but it's up to the council.
I'll just add that we have notified all these TAC reports that you're going to have here coming up. We have notified all the requesters, so they will be possibly here on Thursday. The other thing is, as engineering, we look at visibility, we look at accident rates, we look at stopping distance, we look at those engineering activities within that, and that's what we've done, and that's what we base our recommendation on. If there's a political decision or a maintenance issue or a safety issue as far as EMS or something, we ask the rest of the TAC committee to bring those forward. When we don't get those, we make a recommendation based on whatever that is. In this situation, we did hear from planning and fire that there were some instances where there were safety issues. So, but based on the engineering of the intersection, we're not recommending a change. So anything beyond that would either be a maintenance issue or a political decision or a need by the neighborhood that would move the council in that direction to make that decision. So,
that's what I'm interested in, is if there's a need.
Obviously, the neighborhood sees a need. We don't, by the engineering structure of the intersection, see a need. But obviously, there
lots of people have
is.
opinions on lots of things, but you know, I'm looking for what's the facts?
And that's what our report is.
There's only one set of facts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We see a very low, in our report, we see a very low accident rate. So we assume that it's either an inconvenience or maybe a little bit of a scary situation, but we're obviously not having accidents there. That's what we base our decision on. Otherwise, we'd be modifying our street network for a lot of different reasons that may not be warranted because people are inconvenienced by whatever that situation is.
Right, so in my mind, inconvenience is not a good reason.
Exactly.
There needs to be a safety reason or some hazard or something that's...
We feel if there was a safety issue there, we would be seeing a lot more accidents.
And you're not.
So does that homeowner, there's one homeowner that just parks there. Do they have a big vehicle? Is that,
That's what the,
where are they going to park then if that's taken away?
They're parking on the pavement frequently, I guess, from the report. I haven't actually been out there and seen it happen myself, but they feel like when they pull off of East Robbins, and I think Tom has seen this as well, is that he's parked there, which he can legally do. They're being, what do I want to say, potentially feel like there's an accident that could occur there because of the car parked there.
Is he blocking a sidewalk?
Yeah, he's blocking the side. You zoom up on that house that's, see, there's a truck and a trailer sitting in his driveway. I bet you that's...
Yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah.
He's illegally parked across the sidewalk now. So.
Right. Across the sidewalk.
But if he parks on the other side there, that would...
I mean, it's very possible that there's an issue here. We just haven't seen the accident rates to justify the change.
And so fire would like to see no parking because of the fire hydrants right there?
Yeah, they would just like to see us posted per the code, which is 10 foot from the hydrant on one side and 10 foot from the stop sign on the other. That allows for two vehicles to stack at the intersection in their lane, even if there's cars parked legally on the street.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the fire hydrant? Can you point?
it's a red dot
Is it
on
the red dot?
right side.
Yeah, so that might take care of the issue if you just post the signs.
Yeah, we could do that and give it a try. I mean, if it doesn't work, we're open.
Unless they're just turning really fast, and then I can see potential for an accident. But if people are turning slowly,
we're open to adding no parking to this area, but we have found that council is pretty reluctant to add no parking in these residential areas. Another part of our reason not to recommend it.
Okay, other questions on this? I think we've beat it to death here.
Okay. Did we skip 15? Back report on the pedestrian crosswalk on Boyson Road and Timber Creek.
All right, so this one, they're asking for the crosswalk to be installed down here at this intersection. It was a couple years ago we actually added this crosswalk in this situation. So right now when they're crossing Boyson Road, there's not actually a sidewalk for them that they're crossing. They're just going through the ditch or through the grass to get across at Timber Creek. I mean, there's the trail. There's the trail on the south side, but the sidewalk just dead ends here and here and doesn't come across at all. So they're asking for, it wouldn't just be a beacon. We would have to go in there and put some sidewalk in there. This slope of the street on Boyson is likely not going to be ADA in order to have a crosswalk in here that's legal, because you're going up the hill at that point if you're going eastbound, versus Newcastle is a little flatter, and so it'd be easier to put the beacon in there. So we're recommending at this point not to do anything, but we have 3 beacons that we're putting in this year, it'll be part of our future analysis to determine where the beacons need to go.
Is there a sidewalk to go from Timber Creek over to Newcastle? There's no sidewalk.
No sidewalks.
No, I mean, eventually, maybe this side of Boyson gets sidewalk on it when we do that improvement.
Questions on that or any?
Next one is asking for additional traffic control on 9th Street between 13th and 14th Avenues. My exhibit went away. Basically, it's a local street, 25 miles an hour. It's 25 foot wide and allows parking on both sides, which would still allow for a full lane of travel. The network is primarily residential and has limited intersection vehicle control. We've had one accident in the past 5 years, so we're recommending no action at this time on this one as well. In some of these areas, we have intersections that don't have traffic control. You don't need to have a stop sign at every intersection or a yield sign.
Most of that neighborhood, there's no signs whatsoever.
Questions on that one?
Right.
Next one is the requester is the X, and they're requesting additional traffic control on Hunters Green Way, Huntersfield Lane, and Foxborough Drive. So since more of this has been developed and there's been a lot of houses that have gone in, we just recently reconstructed this other section of Winslow Road, and I'm guessing during that construction there was quite a few cut-through traffic to come through different portions of that. With all the houses going up, there's more traffic construction. We already have just next to him, he has a no parking sign in front of his house. This is a two-way stop controlled on Foxborough Drive. We feel that it doesn't meet any additional traffic warrants at this time.
Okay.
Any questions on that one? Next one comes from a homeowners association group, Anders Court. They would like the speed limit in this section of the street reduced to 20 miles an hour instead of 25. Again, this is a local street. The only people that should be driving on this street are people that live on this street. So again, it has the proper sight and stop distance. We recommend no action at this time. Questions on that one? Next one is the intersection of Echo and Alburnett Road. With this one, we're actually putting in a crosswalk on the north side of Echo Hill with the flashing beacons. That's part of the project that's being approved as part of the council agenda. But they would like a full intersection, full four-way stop. At this point, we don't feel that it's warranted for that. Eventually, when the new school goes in that area, we'll have to do a traffic study, and that traffic study will indicate what's actually required at that time, and then the school would be on the hook to pay for a portion of that as well.
They want to make it a four-way stop?
Yeah, that was one of their suggestions. We've had some correspondence between them, and they just think, just throw out the stop sign and that'll slow people down. That's
On Alburnett.
right.
Not sure that makes sense at this point. State your name and address.
At this intersection are still pretty low. We did have a fairly severe one recently, but overall with the volumes in this intersection, it's still pretty low. So it would not warrant stop signs.
The development that's going on there is putting in a whole bunch of, the development that's going on there is putting in a whole bunch of homes though, isn't it?
Yeah, and at that point, we would look at it again to see if it's warranted at that time.
Yeah.
As you can see by my memo, that there are certain reasons to put a stop sign in, and
Right.
I don't think we've met any of those at this time.
Yeah, I just wonder if you ought to hold off on that till you see what what it's gonna do with the neighborhood build out.
And as the report says, we would like to see this actually improve to either a roundabout or something better if we can get that funded in the CIP. So.
Yeah.
What was sorry, go ahead. Yeah, I thought you were done, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was saying, what was in the CIP? That was for a study for it, correct?
It's a study. I think there's actually $1 million being requested for actual intersection improvements, which would either be a roundabout depending on, or an intersection, signalized intersection based on the study.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, the next one is another TAC report for the Marion Church of Christ requesting wayfinding signs. And again, our recommendation is nothing at this point. They show the references of what St. Joe does, but because we're going to have our wayfinding coming up, we don't want to have them put signs up and then have to take them back down and put new ones up. So wait until that committee gets that done and move forward with the new branding and wayfinding.
Where's that church located?
Is that the new one that's going in? Their address is 610 9th Avenue.
Yeah.
Per their letter.
Oh, yes.
All right, the next one is another TAC request. This one, they're asking for more traffic control inside the red circle, similar to before. There's a lot of intersections out there that don't have traffic control at all. You can see to the north of them, this intersection doesn't have traffic control. This one doesn't have traffic control. It's all residential streets. Again, it doesn't meet the warrants. It's 25 miles an hour. Streets are 25 foot wide and allow parking on both sides. Visibility, there's no accidents. And we see no reason to change it. Questions? And then the last one, just receive and file and refer to TAC.
I'll just quickly apologize for all the TAC items tonight. Because of workload, we kind of got behind on them. But you can see that we deal with a lot of these, and they take a lot of time to do. So as you receive and file these and direct them towards TAC, if they feel like they don't need direction, maybe it'd be better to just receive and file them and not refer them to TAC, because this is where we end up back in. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Planning.
Yes, Your Honor. If we could go to number 15 first. Tracy Achenbach, the Director of the Housing Fund for Lynn County, is in the audience. She's been very patient. Would appreciate it. This is a motion to receive and file a request from the Housing Fund of Lynn County for assistance with local match requirements in the amount of $45,000. And Tracy's going to walk through the Housing Fund. I think quickly, and I think the council's aware of who they are. She's got some projects she'll highlight. I sit on the board and been getting engaged with the Housing Fund. It's a nonprofit. It provides assistance to low and moderate income housing, and there's representative from most of the metropolitan communities on it. And I'll just let her kind of walk through that at this point.
Okay, the last time I used one of these, you would put books under it to adjust it. So, and I break things easily. Oh, there we go. Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks. So I've been in front of you before. I don't remember, and Mayor, I've spoken to you before as well. So the Housing Fund for Lynn County is a state housing. We're one of a housing trust funds. There are 27 in the state. Most of the state is covered with the Housing Trust Fund. We started in 2007, and our purpose, we really have two things. One, we have to help organizations or people who need help with affordable housing. And then the second is it has to be about housing. So that it has to assist people of low to moderate income, and it has to be about housing. So one of the things that Tom, being on the board, that we've been talking about is our need for local match. And I think when I was here before, I talked about that as well. The Housing Trust Fund program was established by the state legislature, and it is given funding every year. And then each Housing Trust Fund has an opportunity to apply for funds at the state, but we have to have a 25% local match to be able to do that. And I've worked in affordable housing for 25 years, and I can tell you I will not ever try and bring back the dollars that I can bring back if I'm able to do it. And so I'm always trying to find ways to be able to come up with our local match. And one of the things that we've been talking about is, one of the things that has impacted us is we're able to use other things for local match, like grants if we get them, and we've been able to utilize Federal Home Loan Bank grants. But as with everything else, things have gotten tighter and it's more difficult to get. So for the last 2 years that we've applied for those grants with the Federal Home Loan Bank, we haven't gotten them, and that has helped us with our local match request at the state. I'm going to just show you, and I apologize these aren't in color because I thought I was going to be doing PowerPoint. So, and I'm sort of frugal, so I don't have a color printer. But anyway, so the Housing Fund for Lynn County is the only entity in our county that can bring back those state dollars to our county to be able to use them. So we combine the state funds that we get with local funds, and we get contributions from banks. We get them from some governmental entities. And then we combine those to make them available to organizations, developers, even cities as well. We've helped the city. They were going to implement a sidewalk improvement program. So what they did was they applied to us to be able to use some of our dollars to help the lowest income people be able to make those sidewalk improvements so that they didn't have to be assessed the amount that the city would have assessed them. That was for the extremely low income in their community. We also have I have a community right now that I'm working with that may be looking at establishing a small homeowner repair program at the city, and they're applying to the Housing Trust Fund to be able to do that. So what Lynn County does, each Housing Trust Fund across the state can determine what their priorities are, how they want to make the funding available. So the Housing Fund for Lynn County Board, which is, by the way, made up of 13 individuals from the county, different folks, and Tom is one of those. And thank you for providing him. He's a valuable board member. One of the things that the Housing Fund for Lynn County decided to do was to make those funds available twice a year. So in the spring and in the fall, we try and make funding available. We decided that in the spring, we would prioritize the awards as grants, and in the fall, they would be loans. And at the fall, mainly because we're trying to piggyback onto other opportunities that projects may have.
So I just want to tell you the figure. So since our first state funding award was in 2008, so since then, as of June 30th, we had awarded a little over $3 million to different organizations. I think the number of organizations or entities or developers or cities, whoever, is about 25 different ones. And then, as you can see, that assisted 1,208 households. And then you can see the numbers there of how many, 30% is, if you have 30% area median income, you're considered to be extremely low income, and 281 were between the 30 and 80. And then 160 of those households have been owner households, and 1,048 have been renter households. So I just what I did was I looked back through our 3 state grants that we have open right now. We have our 2015 grant still open, our 2016 grant, and then our 2017. And in our 2015 grant, we awarded $119,944 of it to Marion residents. So as you can see, last fall we had an emergency request from the Marion Senior Living, the Mountain View Manor, was that the name of it? They came to us and said that they had to trade out their heat exchangers, that HUD was requiring them to do that. We were about to have a loan round coming up that we were going to make funding available to everyone in Lynn County to apply to us, the organizations. But then I got phone calls from the Iowa Finance Authority, I got phone calls from HUD, asking us a favor if we would help these folks out with that, because they were going to have to relocate the seniors that were living there until they could get those heat exchangers done and then move them back into their apartments. So we decided, my board decided to award the Marion Senior Living their request, and then we did not make loan funds available last fall. We ended up using the money that we were going to make available to help the Marion Senior Living. And then we also have, in conjunction with ECOG, we have an owner-occupied minor rehab program. Now we use some other grant sources for that, so the really low amounts, like the 682, I can't, but those low amounts were probably combined with other funding sources, but I just listed them out separately because I wanted you to see that in our 2015 grant then, 6 different homeowners then received some funding from us to be able to help them with minor repairs or rehab needs that they had. And then right now we have 2 projects that I haven't allocated either to 2016 or 2017. One of them, both of them in Marion. One is an owner-occupied rehab, and another is Cedar Valley Habitat for Humanity is doing a project in Marion that we awarded $15,000. So I just wanted to show you that, to show that we do expend dollars here. And then in relationship to the local match that we need, I wanted to also show you how this has impacted us and where the sources have come from. In 2015, I'm going to go from the right over to the left. In 2015, we were able to apply at the state for $426,000, a little over, and that required us to have a little over $100,000 in local match. And as you can see down below, where I list the local match, really other grants that we had at the time helped us out a lot, so we didn't have to go to other sources to be able to help us with the local match. 2016 was the same. We did not have an opportunity to apply as much to the state, but then, as you can see, the other grants that we were able to use helped us out. Last year was a different story. We did not have those other grants because we were not awarded them. It has become really a competitive program to do, and so we were able to apply for $347,000, but almost $87,000 we had to have in local match, and almost all of that was cash and was from contributions, and the city of Cedar Rapids stepped forward and helped us with it. So as you can see, we only had $9,000 in grants, and it was just a reverse. We had a lot of other sources that we had to rely on for our local match. So this year, and the reason I'm here is because in 2018 then, I'm preparing our app right now, And we have an opportunity to apply for $421,000, and we need a local match of $105,460. What my proposition, can I say that?
Sure.
That's kind of a strong word. What I would like to see, what we could do at the Housing Fund for Lynn County is we could, if the city of Marion would help us out with this, we would be able to then only utilize those dollars, obviously, for projects in Marion. And the reason I wanted to show you some history is for you to see that, we have other projects and older grants that we have awarded, but I just looked at the ones that we had open right now. But we would be able to use those funds in Marion, so the funds that you would give us would be able to be provided to your residents. Is there anything else I should cover that you're?
No, I think that's great. Just as a little history, in the past, we've had housing dollars that the city has had. We've had dollars associated with residential TIF that we've had to use for housing. And when we had those, I think it was a part of the Hunter's Ridge development, a portion of the TIF rebates that were provided as a part of that development had to be used to assist low and moderate income housing, primarily because it was a residential development project. So whatever the low and moderate income percentage in Lynn County is, a percentage of the dollars used, or TIF dollars used, have to be brought back to the city and then used for housing, low moderate income housing. When we did that program, we were able to take, it was about $400,000, almost $500,000 that we were required to use, and we created over $1 million worth of dollars back to the city by using it for match. We had a down payment assistance program, we had a lead abatement program, we had a weatherization program. So there was a number of ways that we could take those dollars and use them to leverage additional dollars. Again, we have a project, and I don't know how much we need to get into it, but we're with the Lucor Road project, we have dollars that are going to be necessary for us to use for low and moderate income housing. I would say when we were doing this before, this was in the early 2000s, Kesha got on board right at the end of it, so she took over some of it, but I was handling it all in-house. So we were doing a lot of the programs in-house, in department. By virtue of what's being proposed here, we could take the dollars that were required to use for low and moderate income housing, provide them to the housing fund, and then they would administer them and ensure that they're done, that dollars are used to assist low and moderate income housing. Staff time's not being used, it's still going to assist Marion, and there is the possibility that they could bring in and leverage additional dollars to the city of Marion. So it's a really good situation, and I think it'll help us out a lot, and it'll take some of the staffing issues that we have currently and assist with that into the future. So
the 45,000 is already existing somewhere?
The way that would be is it's got to be provided as a letter of credit, or basically a letter that says the money is obligated, and then we would be able to make that payment over time as we receive money back. And Lon, I don't know if you want to get into too much detail on the.
But I'm saying the source is a guaranteed source.
Yeah, anytime we do a project that benefits housing, if TIF dollars are used, we have to meet that set-aside requirement. So, for example, when we installed Winslow Road, part of that Winslow Road, because it benefited the Bridge Creek addition, has to go to benefit low to moderate income projects. And I think when Tracy looked, the Lynn County percentage was right around 32.3, 32.5%. So any money that would get allocated from that district to repay the city for the cost of installing that road, that 32.5% has to go to benefit low to moderate income housing projects.
Okay, so
and usually, as Tom said, when we do that, we look for opportunities to layer that money with other money and leverage as many dollars as we can.
What I'm saying, we know that this 45,000 is going to be available and needed and required to be used for low to moderate income housing.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's a requirement of using that source of funding,
Right.
and it has to. I mean, you have a lot of different ways that you can do it, but this is a good one that we can look at to, again, leverage additional dollars with the money.
Okay.
But I don't have the final estimate on the annual amounts yet.
Okay.
That will be.
And one thing I did say that Tom did mention is that what I need for an application is a dedication, a commitment of the 45,000, but we will have 2 to 3 years for the grant period to utilize it, so
So,
it would be up to the city how they paid it out to us.
so it's a local match.
Right.
So it's, you said, is it 25% or 20?
We are required to have a 25%.
25%.
So it allows us to ask for 4
So-
times the amount.
So you can leverage that to get 180,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the 180 would be spent in Marion? Or the 45?
I think probably, but I wouldn't, and the only reason, because the only reason I'm hesitating at all, obviously we spent about 120,000 of 2015 money, so I think it wouldn't be a problem, but we also are dependent on the projects coming to us and applying to us. We'd obviously, if we had your funding tied to that grant year, we would give preference to Marion projects. I can't say the dollar amount.
I
wouldn't
understand.
want to say the dollar amount.
So
Is that
it's not a
okay?
guaranteed thing, but it's just, we have to.
But like I said, you've already shown that you have dedicated a lot of money to Marion. So.
Yeah,
so
I'm just trying to understand how it
I'm
works.
probably being a little bit too conservative to say, I don't want to say that absolutely, but because it is dependent on someone coming to us and applying to
Yeah.
us, and
I'm not trying to make you say either way. I'm trying to understand how it actually
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
So it's not that you have to spend it in Marion, but I know you'd give preference and all that, but.
And let me also say, in regard to leveraging, I don't remember what the dollar amount is. I don't know if you've seen it in but I think that we, because usually we are also putting money into projects that's bringing a lot of money from elsewhere. So I think the dollar amount is generally an average is like for every $7, we spend, it leverages, for every dollar we spend, it leverages 7. So it's not just 4, it's,
Okay.
a lot of times we come in on a bigger project as a gap financing or something like that,
So it makes it possible for a project to happen because you fill the gap.
Yes, right.
Okay.
It could be used for local match for a local housing project. We've done a lot of the senior housing projects, and we've provided incentives. There's different ways, and there's always a need. Habitat for Humanity houses, things like that.
Could we work with you to put together a program, like you said, like a loan fund for people who want to fix up their houses that may need the assistance that normally wouldn't be able to do it? And is that?
We could apply.
We could do that, yeah. I mean, that's a possibility, yes. Mm-hmm.
Didn't we used to do that? We used to do that program.
We did, and those dollars came from the same place that these dollars would be coming from.
Oh.
And ECOG, East Central Iowa Council of Government, who we work with a lot as a group, they administered the program. We had a weatherization program, we had a lead abatement program, we had a housing assistance program. I mean, we did a whole slew of programs, and it was all money that was required, but we were able to really maximize that benefit by partnering with organizations, and I think that's what we're trying to do
Yeah,
here.
that's very attractive.
And I don't want to belabor the issue, but with our population getting bigger, when we hit 50,000, we become what you call a entitlement community. It's been a long time since I worked in this realm, and money is directly allocated to the city for housing. We're getting to the point where we need to really start thinking about that, understanding the housing, getting into these programs, and really seeing what that's going to bring to the future, because we could be there in 5 to 7 years potentially. So that's just something that we really need to be cognizant of, and I think we're trying to get into the housing. That's one of the reasons I got involved in the housing fund. I've been attending the IFA conferences, and so it's just something I think we really need to kind of pay attention to, because as we grow, it's going to be a housing component. I think even with the local recent regulations on civil rights and renters and all of that, as we get bigger, these are just issues that we're going to have to stay ahead of. So anyway.
Well, it's important for us, I think, to make sure that wherever we can, provide assistance, that we're providing it to people who need it, because, you know, we need to be concerned about everyone's quality of life in our
Absolutely.
community and improving everyone's quality of life. So something like this, I think, is an attractive way to leverage money and to get some real things done. I think Kim had a
My
question.
question's kind of like what they were saying. Is this open to residents for the funding? Can someone just come and apply?
Our revolving loan fund is only available to organizations or entities or communities to apply to us that is proposing a program. However, we have our Federal Home Loan Bank grant that we have gotten in the past has been for owner-occupied minor rehabilitation. And in that program, ECOG has administered it for us. We've used our dollars to put with the Federal Home Loan Bank dollars to leverage it even more. And that program, homeowners do apply to us directly.
Yeah, one example.
So the ones that you saw listed up there, the individual lower amounts underneath the Marion Senior Living, those were individuals who had applied to that sort of program.
Yeah, one example is when we require a sidewalk put in, and it might be a low-income person that is required. I was just wondering if they could get funding, to help.
They
with
would
that.
not, well, if we have grant dollars available for them to be able to do it, but our general revolving loan fund, we have a community right now that has funds of ours, like I said, but it's the community that's actually offering the program to its residents. And I believe their city clerk is processing the applications from the homeowners to ensure that they do meet the income criteria that they need to meet for us, because they need to meet the LMI criteria. Does that make sense?
Okay.
I just wanted to remind Mr. Traherne that I remember having done that program before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
It was a good program.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Other questions on this? Any comments?
If the council's agreeable, we'll put on a resolution of support for drafting that letter on Thursday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to go back to item number 2. It's a final plat for 7th Avenue Commercial Edition, 2823 7th Avenue. It's a 3-lot final plat for the hotel. I'm not going to go into any great detail unless there's, how many times can we look at it, right? Number 3 is related, number 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all related to Uptown Dental. Really I'll summarize the 3. It's an interim development review. Planning Commission reviewed it and recommending approval. And then we're also going to be within that, we would write in the demolition of the existing buildings on the site as a part of that resolution. Number 5 is the final plat, or building permit prior to final plat, also related to the dental office. They'd like to get started, so they want to demo the building and get it going as soon as possible. And then issuance of permit prior to. So those 3 items are related. Mr. Lenz was in the audience earlier, just so the council's aware that. So he didn't want to show support for his project, so he was here. He needed to leave for a family deal. Item number 7, unless there's questions by the council, safe routes to school plan. I think everybody's had time, and there was a desire to table that until tonight. On Thursday, there'll be a public hearing regarding the donation of property at 2941 5th Avenue. This is related to the Marion Independent School District's request for property to build a home. I would point out that there's been some phone calls over the last week regarding this. An individual has contacted the city in the past to purchase this. No formal request has ever been made, and we get requests on a regular basis to buy things, and I think I just got one today about a garage they want to buy from the city. So generally the way that's proceeded is you apply by sending a letter or doing some formal request. That has never been received in the past.
But that is a double lot, isn't it?
It is a double lot, but
Okay, so are we just giving them one half of that double lot?
the request was for the property.
The whole thing?
Yep.
Wow.
So as I had indicated at the last meeting, the desire, and I had made this indication at the last meeting that there could be somebody that shows up and says, I want to buy it. If that happens, that's up to the council to decide whether you want to donate the property or sell it. So I just want to make the council aware of that. I've been contacted by an individual who seems upset that he was not given the opportunity to purchase it. But it's not uncommon for the city in the past, and I think Lon and I can both cite examples where property has been donated to Habitat for Humanity for projects, just this little mod, and to nonprofit organizations. So it's not an obligation of the city to go out and receive proposals for property. If there's a desire for the council to donate it for a public purpose, then that's well within your right to do so.
But the
Would the cost of that lot be dependent on what the footage and all this, or would it just be or is this person expecting to pay 2 cents on the dollar or whatever for the?
We've never received a formal offer.
Okay.
But he says that he was told that there's no interest in selling it, so.
There's been no interest in selling it from the council or anyone else. This is.
But to be fair, the council didn't even know it was. I didn't know
Yeah,
that the city owned the lot.
Yeah.
How can we say we're interested in selling it when we don't know that it's even a city-owned lot? We don't go around and check out where all the city-owned lots are.
Well, the council is. Yeah, like I said, I get phone calls all the time from folks that want to buy all the lots that we've had, or houses, or garages. The only way you can formalize a request, and I did ask if the individual had ever formalized a request to be received and filed by the city council, and none has been received. The step is to ask formally. If someone calls me and says, I want to buy a property in the block between City Hall and the library, I tell them that that's really not something the city council has been interested in. We're acquiring for a future project. That's my general indication. If they want to ask for more formal direction, they would need to.
Were we holding that for a future project, or what
we were holding that until we had the corridor plan completed. That's what to know what the actual uses were going to be.
Okay, and then we've determined that it wasn't needed. I assume.
We're responding to a request for the donation, I think is where it came down to.
Yeah, in conversations with the school, obviously, you heard from Marion Independent. The last 3 years in a row, they've built houses with their construction trades class, but they built them in another school district, and they were looking for alternatives. They did know that we had the lot, and so I advised them, send the city council a proposal, and we'll see what the council wants to do. One of the things that I think might be in play here is that the individual who's interested owns some rental properties next door. I guess from my standpoint, Marion Independent is clearly focused and has been working with a large realty firm on looking at ways that they can work with their construction trades class to foster more home ownership opportunities in their district, because no offense to renters, but the household dynamics are typically different. Renters usually have a smaller household size, and the lifeblood of school districts is students. And so everything that they've done is really geared towards increasing rates of home ownership in their district. And when they asked about it, I guess the question that would likely be put before the council would be, would you have ever had an interest in putting those properties out for use for a rental project? The partnership with Marion Independent, obviously, they're looking to build single-family homes on one or potentially both of those lots, with the idea in mind that they'll be sold to families that, again, will have that vested interest in the district.
Right, but without doing some sort of request for proposals or something, you never know what the potential is for what people might want to do on the property, whether it's building a house or a rental property or whatever.
True, but typically when we've had a
So, I mean, we
request
just-
typically when we've had a request from another public entity, that has taken priority over private projects.
Because, why?
Because we're partnering with another organization, and for example, if you require Marion Independent to pay you for the lot, have it appraised, all you're doing is transferring taxes from one entity to another. I know that we've had that philosophical discussion with one of the other school districts in the past, and they don't necessarily share that, but philosophically I think that's the way the city has always looked at it. And a private project isn't going to provide experience for construction trades students. It's not going to set them on a career path, give them training for education towards future employment, which Medco will tell you is a clear need in our area. That's really the heart of the phrase, I think, other valuable consideration. When you're selling a lot, you sell it for $1 and other valuable consideration. Those community benefits in this case are the other valuable consideration.
No, I'm not doubting that there's community benefit. I'm just trying to make sure we treat everyone fairly. Okay.
When that individual addressed you, was he told that, you know, he has to make a formal request to do that, to ask for that lot?
It was an informal phone conversation, so I don't recall. It was some time ago. That's when I talked to him.
But in general, is that what you tell them, that you have to make a formal request to do?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not my decision; it's the council's decision.
Right, I know, but
I mean,
but when someone calls and asks, do you say it's you have to do it formally, not just because you call me?
Correct. Yeah.
I think as long as that's being done, it's fair.
Yeah.
As long as every time someone calls in and inquires about a property, and as long as they're told, well, if you're interested in purchasing that property, you need to make a formal request to the council, then it would be 100% fair to every citizen.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
And
I'm not
as
saying
an
you're not,
example,
I'm just saying that.
And I'll give you an example. In the garage last year, that was one. There's been a conversation today about the block over here by 15th, between 14th and 15th. Someone contacted the building department, or no, I'm sorry, it was out on Winslow. They want the garage on a piece of property out on Winslow. And my indication to the building department was tell them if they want it, they're going to have to submit a formal request. And as I've indicated before, in something like that, it's a lot of staff time to get rid of a garage that generally somebody wants to have for nothing. But nonetheless, that's how those come forward. So, did I say it? It's been a long time ago. I'm assuming that I said it. That's what I tell everybody. But
Okay, other questions on that? What's next?
Setting October 5th public hearing regarding the rezoning of property. This is the A1 property west of 44th Street on the Hennessy property. Number 12, I'm just going to mention it. There was a request, receive and file a request from Eli at Ziogiano's regarding the acquisition of property as a part of the. You guys received it in your packet. There's no room, so I won't go into all the details. Number 15 is the request from Lynn County for the local match.
Can I go back?
Yep.
To the dental office?
Absolutely, yes.
In the report here that we got from, I think Dave sent it to us. Yeah.
Yeah.
It says there's concerns. The staff is generally supportive of the request, but there's the following concerns. About something about the roof, and then no access from 7th Ave. Has that been brought to the...
That was brought to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission recommended approval of the plan as submitted. So that's the recommendation that comes out of the commission. So It's a metal standing roof.
Yeah, a lot of roof.
That roof is all metal?
Yeah, it's a standing seam metal roof.
Not gonna have problems like the library where it's got, things that come together that leave a pool of water.
As long as it's built right, it shouldn't.
Yeah.
And that doesn't look, I mean, that, yeah, I mean, it looks nice. That's not, in my mind, that's not uptown.
Flat roof?
I don't know. And I see where it's talk about that there's no access from 7th Ave. And so you're just looking at windows on 7th Ave.
Right.
You look at the elevations, the pictures.
So this is
Front facing is just
so this is
windows.
the 7th Ave.
What would you like instead?
Really, 13?
Well, I'm just reading what the concerns were that staff brought up.
Yeah. Those were provided to the Planning Commission, and as you know, the Planning Commission is the recommend body to the City Council. Right. So, if there's concerns by the council for those, there were not concerns by the Planning Commission, and they recommended approval.
So my question is, what does staff think? I mean, we're reading right here.
Well, I mean, I think the concerns were identified. I don't know that. I mean, it's a good quality building, and it's a really good reuse of the property. I don't know that we have huge concerns with it. They were just ones that we raised.
Because it does talk about the overall plan for uptown around the roundabouts and walkability, and that's been the council's been in favor of that in the past. So, not that I don't think this is a
How
nice
is
building.
walkability affected?
According to this, it's saying that because it's not entrance on 7th Avenue. So along 7th Avenue, the walkability, the uptown district, you're walking the roads and all your entrances are right there along the road.
Mm-hmm.
And this is part of the uptown district.
It's only 13 feet off the sidewalk.
But it's not it's just a window. There's no doors
There's
there.
no doors there.
Could that be added at a future date?
Under a reuse of something, it could, yeah.
I mean,
but we're approving this tonight, or Thursday, I guess, saying that they can start building.
Correct. Yep.
I was bringing it up because there's concerns in here that...
Anybody else have those concerns?
The parking lot's in the back.
Parking lot's in the back, right.
Most people are going to park in the parking lot.
Right. I'm just saying it's going against the uptown.
I'm glad you asked about the roof, because that is one thing that planning had an issue with, but apparently they went with it.
And the petitioner should be here on Thursday if you have questions for them.
The what'd you say?
The petitioner, the owner,
Gotcha.
the developer.
Is that inconsistent with the uptown plan or whatever the...
Well, I mean...
Design standards for uptown?
It meets the design standards.
For uptown?
Yes.
Okay.
It does meet the design standards. I mean, there's no question about it. The site plan is typical. You would see something, I would say, more on Tower Terrace Road. That building looks like Tower Terrace Road.
Right.
There's no question about it.
Parks and Schmidt.
Yeah. I mean, most, hate to say it, but a lot of the dentist office seem to kind of have the same character. But I mean, it's a quality building. Yes, there's one of the concerns would be that it's not a historic structure. It's not a two-story. We have nothing that compels that. The IDO review ordinance really outlined these issues. If there's a strong, compelling argument to make that, we were looking at the Planning Commission, and they overwhelmingly supported it, so we weren't going to really push the issue too much further than that. So Planning Commission was supportive of it. We're not going to override their recommendation by virtue of that positioning. So,
wouldn't that make a nice picture in the Tower Terrace corridor planning?
I mean, if we had the uptown plan adopted and everything, and we had the standards in place that said things had to do a certain thing, I think that'd be different.
What's the status of that?
We've got the draft ordinances was received last week, so.
By you? You guys received it, or?
Yes,
Yeah,
I've received, I've not even had a chance to look at it, but once we get a chance to look at it.
But we haven't received it. You've
No,
received
no,
it.
no,
Yeah,
no,
okay.
just came
That's
into
one-
staff, yep.
So then you're gonna keep working on it, and then at some point we'll see it? Or-
Absolutely, yep.
What's the next step with that?
We'll get the visuals and those draft ordinances to the committee for recommendation and back to the planning commission. We're running I'd say about 20 days behind right now.
On the ordinance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's gonna go through the planning commission and then come to us?
Yeah, and there's staff members, I think Will and Kim
Okay.
and
I think Draper's on it.
Paul are all three on the committee, and it's been a while since we've
So
met.
is that gonna say no pitched roofs, or is that, so what's that gonna?
So that's my concern is
What's that
if we
plan
draft
gonna-
that, is that gonna be fully out of whack?
And I'd have to, like I said, we just received it, so.
I remember we talked about what type of buildings would be down around the roundabouts, and my memory serves me, it's not that.
Well, I mean, if there's concerns by the council, we can relay that information and ask the developer that on Thursday.
I think, as close as it's gonna be to 7th Avenue, it's gonna be like right there.
It's gonna be a lot of roof.
A lot of roof right there, right there by you.
That's all you're gonna see is the roof.
Yeah. I think you ought to ask.
In between now and then, I'll review the information that I've received. I could have the council run it. It could be ran through our consultants too, if you'd like a review done by them for an opinion.
I mean, you would just have to look at that, that specific area in the report to see what.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be nice.
Okay.
Just thinking of the future here, that if we adopt something, in 6 months from now, and this is already going, and it's completely off of what we're adopting, then.
Rather having to say that was grandfathered for the document.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Yep. Any other questions?
Are we done? Just kidding.
Oh, if only.
No chance.
Well, the first item that I wanted to bring to council was the discussion regarding the way that the agendas are formatted. I'd put together a memo that was included in the council packets. We've been talking about this at the staff level for a while, and we've had some discussions with the council about how to streamline the council meetings, make them more efficient. And one of the things that I think has been really challenging is that you have projects that bridge multiple pieces and multiple departments sprinkled throughout the agenda. And so I used kind of a fictional example. I almost called it a bar, but I thought maybe it was a little too soon after the Tower Terrace discussions to put that in there of what would happen if a project came forward that had needed a liquor license or some other form of permitting, but then also was part of a platting request, and engineering was putting in traffic signals, and we were helping with the cost of the traffic signals, just to really show how that would be sprinkled throughout the agenda. So if you've got a developer in the audience, they're going to stay here for the entire meeting to get through all those different pieces. And so one of the topics that we've discussed internally was, what if we reorganized it around different areas? And so using economic development as an example, economic development might kick off every meeting, and you'd hear the presentations from the businesses would go through what they're going to be working on, and then all the agenda items related to that would be taken action on all together when it came time to do the formal council meeting. Because right now, even if somebody wants to look up a project like a Squaw Creek Crossing, it's hard for them to go back through the city council minutes and figure out where everything was at. that. This would make it a lot more convenient for people that want to see that, because all the items, everything under finance, planning, engineering, administration, if there's anything related to public safety, we would all be right there together, and all the actions would be taken sequentially. We then looked at the way some other communities around the area organize their agendas to cull some ideas out that we thought would maybe help with ours. And one of the ones that really jumped out was actually with Cedar Rapids and how they schedule their public hearings. So they might have a topic on the agenda where they do like all of their presentations at the beginning, but then they'll move into public hearings. And if you think about people coming to a meeting, if there's a public hearing under my section that they're interested in, again, we started at 4 o'clock and we're here at 7:20 on a Tuesday. Thursday, the same thing can happen. If you do all the public hearings, then the items that people are there for are front-loaded on the agenda, and it really gives them an opportunity to then move on with their day. The other suggestion that we had was to move the public comment period to the end of the agenda. The main reason behind that is that by definition, you're asking people to address the council about topics that are not on the agenda. Well, the bulk of the people in the audience are there to hear about things that are on the agenda. So I think the staff's feeling was we should get those out of the way first, and then at the end, if the public comment period is held later, there would be more of an opportunity there if the council wanted to engage or the staff needed to answer questions to do that without putting off all the other actions that are then waiting on the agenda for that to get done. Right now, while it's not really intended for council to engage people, just for opportunities for individuals to address the council, they'll address the council, and a response might be given to whatever they're talking about, but it's given at the end of the meeting. And the person who made the statements may have already left. That way you can ensure that if you're going to have that opportunity, if there's going to be that interaction, they will still be there. So we're just looking at those as ways that we could reorganize the agenda to make the meetings flow a little bit better, make it more accessible to people. And again, if somebody's interested in a project, they can come to the council. Everything related to that project would all be done at one time. They wouldn't need to stick around to say, okay, well, now this piece is done, now this piece is done, and then 45 minutes later, the other piece of it is done. But we wanted to get some feedback from the council and didn't want to just wholesale make changes to the agenda without making sure that you were okay with those types of alterations.
I think your first example made a lot more sense to me than I'm used to having public hearings always at the front, things that, my organization I work with, but you have that problem where you have a public hearing, you don't take action until way later in the agenda. A lot of people probably would have left prior to that, so I'm not sure that makes total sense to all your public hearings right up front, but I do like to have a public hearing and have all the action items that's related to that topic all together. I think that makes a lot of sense. And you have a public hearing, then you have all your other action items that are tied to that. It's all together, and then you go forward. But you could still have a lot there that some people might be here, and that there's part of it may be way late in the meeting still too. So you're never going to catch everybody that it's right up front, and then you deal with that. But I think when you're looking back, I see what you're saying. It makes a lot of sense. You can find all of the stuff that's related. It's right there. It's not hunt and peck and trying to find it all. And it's
Still have a consent agenda.
Yeah, you'd still have a consent agenda. And one of the things that really, I think, brought it home for me was when Marion Process Solutions had a representative here. He was waiting and waiting and waiting. He was to do his presentation, and we were going a little long in the first part of the meeting. He had another meeting at 5:15 that he had to miss because we ran long. And if we have those pieces at the front of the agenda, then we can make sure that, we're, for those folks that are going out and creating jobs and making investments in the community, that we're not inconveniencing them any more than we have to.
Is there anything wrong with just trying it? I mean,
No.
If we try it and it doesn't work, we can always go back, right? I mean,
Ultimately, we've been researching agenda management software packages to, and I think we'll probably make a proposal to the council during budget this year that would really automate a lot of this kind of stuff and make it a lot easier to post it online and make it easier to manage. But this would be a good interim step, and I think really improve the workflow of the council meetings.
Well, the reason I brought up a question about changing this was more than just one day in between work session and formal council meeting, so that you would have a chance to go, chew up and see exactly how you want to vote.
What, one thing that Lon, I think, had mentioned before, a possibility was switch them so that work session is on Thursday and meeting is on Tuesday, and then you'd have the weekend. You'd have 4 days between instead of just 2.
Either that or
Or 1 day
Thursday
between.
to Thursday,
I mean, if you just did them backwards, we had the work session on Thursday, meeting on Tuesday. You'd have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Well, that's true, but I still think you need more time. And what I hear a lot is that people are complaining that even the 5:30 meetings are not convenient. That if they have children that they have to take home and feed, and they can't make it to the meeting, so.
Well,
I'm not going to be here. This is you guys.
The other thing that comes to mind is like tonight with this issue with the building and the roof and all of that. I mean, it's pretty far along now, and it's kind of like, if you go back, it's a really tough position now to say, oh, we don't think it fits into the overall plan for uptown. I mean, if that had been somehow, if we were aware that was coming, and that staff's concerns about it or anybody's concerns about it ahead of time, I don't know how you fix that, how you build that into the way that we do things, how we build that in so that we know more what's coming and what the concerns might be. It might be helpful. I don't know.
And that's one of the things that the agenda management software, all the packages that we've looked at, really take all of the agenda systems from all of our various boards and commissions and put them into one software package. So if the council wanted to take a look at the entire packet for the Planning and Zoning Commission, it would just be another drop-down menu, and you could take a quick look at it and see what Park Board was considering and what was in front of the Public Service Commission and what the Library Board was working on. All of that will be packaged together, and part of the advantages of the ones that we've been looking at would be is if something gets populated from planning, you set up your procedures internally, so that, if they take a preliminary plat to the Planning and Zoning Commission for approval, and the software knows that that's on the 15th of the month, we can set it to automatically populate it to the next council meeting when it would be coming before the city council. So if you wanted to have more time in between, for example, rather than having it on the immediate following city council meeting, maybe we'd auto-populate it that it's the first council meeting of the following month. We can make a lot of those kind of changes and just make it part of the software during the initial setup period.
But again, back to that building, like, if there had been some way of getting input before it got to P&Z, and the council's not going to approve this, or the council doesn't agree with this, it might have changed things early on, as opposed to now when,
Never want to put footings in.
everything's been done.
Yeah, because this is the first.
I think. Well, I think we've seen the rendering. I saw a rendering somewhere, somehow.
It was received and filed.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I don't think we really realized.
No.
I mean, I hadn't thought about what those concerns are until you brought them up.
And I haven't really looked at it until now.
But got to be a way that we can get that information sooner, to have more dialogue sooner, to we can.
I think it's exactly
We
what
all be on the same page.
If it's something that was on the August 8th P&Z, and we know it's going to be on the September whatever meeting, if it's auto-populated into some software system that we're looking at, we'll know. I think that would definitely help.
That type of thing would show up as soon as it went on to P&Z. I mean, if you start looking to agendas going forward, you'd be able to see what those upcoming agenda items were.
All right.
I think it makes sense to try it at least.
Yeah, we'll flush it out and we'll give you some warning before we just roll out a whole new agenda format to let you know when it's coming and let you preview it. Okay, then the second one is a resolution approving the economic development policy. One of the things that I wanted to do, but I realized I hadn't really done when we've talked about the economic development policy, is really talk about how TIF works. And I know there's a lot of misconceptions out there about that, even amongst some of our state legislators about how it works. At its core, I guess the phrase that I keep hearing is that the city is giving away our TIF money. And one of the things that you have to understand is that if the project doesn't happen, there is no TIF. And when we do our projects, our guiding philosophy has always been the but-for test and the public purpose test. Anything that we do has to meet both of those tests. So I can say with very good confidence that the projects that we've done would not have occurred if the city hadn't stepped in. They were ones that were financially infeasible without city assistance to get over the hump and make that project happen. So if the city doesn't do the project, there is no increment, therefore there is no TIF. So if anybody tells you that the city is just giving away TIF money or we're taking their taxes and redirecting them to something else, they are absolutely 100% dead wrong. That can't be any more clear about it than that anybody that makes a statement like that has absolutely no understanding of what tax increment financing is or how it works. Beyond that, the other tool that's contemplated in the economic development policy is tax abatement. It's called the Urban Revitalization Statute. That's different. With tax abatement, basically, the county assessor just doesn't increase the assessed value of a parcel until the abatement schedule is done, or they increase it according to the abatement schedule, so the tax bill just doesn't go up. It's different than TIF, where they pay it and then we rebate it. So just wanted to make sure that the council really understood that. I don't know that I've always done the best job of explaining how increment works, but new development, new taxable value creates the increment that the city can work with. Period. There's not to think that money is just sitting somewhere that we can just turn around and give away. That's not how it works.
And generally, we're not given that increment totally all the way, so we're actually getting some while we're paying that out increment as well. So.
Yep, and that's also the advantage of using the rebate formula, is if the developer doesn't perform, they don't get rebates.
And I always forget this. Can you remind us what portions of the tax bill are exempt from being subject to?
The school's physical plant and equipment levy is exempt, and the debt service levy of any taxing entity is exempt. So ours, Lynn County, Kirkwood, any of the school districts, and I believe the playground levy might be exempt as well. I'd have to check that one because not a lot of schools use that, but I think that one's also exempt.
Okay. I guess the thing I always ask you, Lon, is the land, the revenue the city receives from the land, would we get more money from the individual developing the project, even if it's TIF'd? Will we get more money the first year? And it's always, the answer is yes. So, I mean, from the get-go of the 15-year TIF or whatever, I mean, we're getting more money in, and it just goes up over those 15 years. So.
Yeah, the exempt levies that the mayor asked about is the reason for that. We can't rebate 100% of the increment, so there's always a difference. Usually it's in the neighborhood of $5 to $5.65 per thousand that we can't rebate, that has to go out to those other taxing entities, and we're one of the beneficiaries of that as well.
Okay.
So any other questions on that? We've made quite a few revisions to the policy just based on input from other organizations that work with it, and just wanted to see, I know the council's had it for a while, if you had any further questions upon review.
I know some of it's highlighted, but it doesn't appear to be changed.
Yeah, I didn't take out the highlights. I wanted to still call out to the council the changes from the existing policy.
Oh, okay. I know some are, but there are some changes that were highlighted.
Yeah, most of the stuff that was changed between the first and second draft was what happens when you get a half a dozen people that are wordsmiths together. Everybody has kind of a little different linguistic style. And
I know for me, the spell check would be the first thing.
Okay, next.
All right. We needed to have a discussion with the City Council about the strategic planning session. We had passed a resolution to always hold it on the same date, and this time around, that actually ends up falling on a holiday. And so we needed to get some input from the council on what dates we might want to look at instead. I think our normal schedule, as I recall, would have had us meeting on November 10th. And we have checked with our facilitator. We have a couple of different options. We could go earlier and go on November 3rd and 4th. Otherwise, we could go to November 11th, which is that same holiday weekend. One of the reasons that we always chose the second weekend in November was because you typically will have your elections, and then you can invite the newly elected council members to attend the strategic planning session. Even though they haven't formally been seated, we'll always extend that invitation. So if we go earlier, we don't necessarily have that opportunity. We certainly could extend the invitation to all the candidates that are running for the seats and see if they'd be interested in attending. You just wouldn't really know who the full slate is until after that.
What did you say about the 17th and 18th, or not? Or you didn't say anything?
I don't think our facilitator was available on the
Okay.
17th and 18th.
So the options are,
We were looking at the 3rd and 4th, but then also wondering about just doing it on Saturday the 11th, or maybe the 11th and 12th if we needed to spill into the second day.
Ooh, there's a Packers game at noon.
wait, 12th is a Sunday?
Yeah.
I'm all for doing it on the 11th. Do we need more than one day?
It really depends on how quickly we progress.
We work through lunch?
Don't we usually? No. I guess if we did it the week earlier and extend the invitation to everyone that's running for a seat. I mean, it's open to public anyway, isn't it?
Mhm.
No, yeah.
Yeah, it's a
open to
public meeting.
Anyway.
November
Yeah, but-
election.
7th?
It's open to the public, but they don't
It's on
participate.
the 7th.
Correct.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, it is marked there.
We can do it Thanksgiving weekend? No?
You don't want to do it on the 11th?
I don't care. That's fine.
Or
That's Veterans Day.
So the city hall's
actual
closed
holiday.
on
Are
the
you taking the day
10th,
off?
is that?
Right.
I'm a real try never take a day off.
what's your, do you have a recommendation or any preference?
No, not really.
Fine.
Just wanted to see, sometimes council schedules are all over
Yeah.
the map, so wanted to get...
I'm okay with the 11th, and if we need to
11th's
spill
okay
into
with
the
me.
12th, I mean,
Dave doesn't care.
you actually gonna be there?
Can we do it in the afternoon? If we do the 12th, do the afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, we can come back in the afternoon on the 12th
Yeah.
if we need to.
Or in the morning, before the game.
Oh, you guys go to church?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
It's football season, sorry.
Okay.
We'll sketch out a calendar and send it out to council for further input, but we'll target those days.
The 11th is okay with me.
I'm good. Either.
I think the 11 works for everybody, yeah.
I'm easy.
But if you do it on the 12th, I'd prefer having it in the afternoon if we could.
Come on.
He said if we spill over on this Sunday, he'd prefer to do it in the afternoon.
Yep.
So we'd be looking at 1 to 7 on the first day, because that's usually what we do on Fridays, but we could be flexible and do that earlier if you
Holiday
prefer to do it
Saturday.
8:30 to 4.
Yeah.
Or even if we need to go, I mean, instead of coming Saturday or Sunday, if we went 8:30 to 6 or something, I mean,
Yeah,
just
that's fine.
get it all done Saturday.
Yeah.
if that works. for
Lon
the
won't have a
facilitator.
voice, but
I'll be missing soccer. Actually, November, probably not soccer. I think that's done in October.
All right.
Number 6 is the Memorandum of Understanding with Marion Process Solutions. This is the precursor to what ultimately will be a tax increment financing agreement. Marion Process Solutions is proposing to build a new testing lab and office facility out there on a parcel that they bought next to their existing site. We're essentially meeting the standard that the state has for the expected local match, and it's expected to not exceed $100,000. The actual estimate would be closer to 92, but it's not an exact science between construction costs and valuations, so we didn't want to get caught and have to come back and amend the agreement.
Okay. Questions on that? Next.
Yep. Then number 8 is the Memorandum of Understanding with SB Coastal. This is a similar agreement. It's a set of rebates, 3 years 100%, 2 years 75%, with a total not to exceed $22,500. This one is based off of the physical improvements that they're making to the facility, including code compliance, ADA compliance, and historic preservation. The amount that they will be expending on the facility actually will far exceed that, but this was the eligible expenses that we were able to substantiate.
Questions? Okay.
And number 9, Wes and I talked to an attorney that works on behalf of Marion Iron, and we had kind of an unusual situation develop with them. When the company relocated, one of the things that the city did was put a phase-in of property taxes on their new facility, because they were going to see a pretty significant jump going from their old site on 7th Avenue to the new one. And when you put a TIF agreement together, you do your estimates based on your best guess of when the property assessments are going to come due. Typically what happens is they'll build over the winter, and so they may enter January 1 only being 20 or 30% done, and so they get a partial assessment. And we usually try to time it so that their rebates start the next year after that, so that they actually get the full rebate amount. Well, we set Marion Iron's agreement up that way, but what ended up happening is they were actually more than 80% done on January 1. So on a $3 million facility, their 80% assessment number was really, really, really large. And so they ended up with a tax bill when they were expecting one of about $11,700, getting a tax bill for $56,000 in their first year at the new facility. And so we talked over a couple of different alternatives to make up for that difference, and I think in talking with Wes, what we would propose to do is actually just up their rebates for the following 2 fiscal years to bring them back down to the point where they would be where they should have been during that initial year.
So it's not offering additional incentive?
No, it brings their incentive package 1 year earlier. We anticipated that their full assessment was going to go on the books as of January 1, 2016. They actually ended up with about an 85% assessment on January 1, 2015. And so they ended up with a much larger tax bill that first year that they paid taxes. So what this will do is it'll take that phase-in schedule and move it 1 year ahead.
Okay.
So it will expire earlier.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get to. All right.
Yep.
I'm fine with that. Any questions on that? Anything else? Okay, so we have. You want to make the motion?
I was just going to say, you guys should have gotten a appointment for the Marion Airport in your package.
That's Thursday. Yes.
He is a Marion resident, and he doesn't own land. Just for clarification. Your Honor, I make a motion to adjourn to closed session regarding land acquisition as permitted under section 21.5, 1J of the Code of Iowa.
That's actually scheduled for Thursday, Mayor, if we need it.
Oh,
Yep, not for today.
Yeah, after I said it, then I see.
okay. Well,
Unless you want to do it, I mean.
motion dies for lack of a second. It wasn't seconded.
I just about did it.
And it was not requested by Thursday, just to clarify.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
27 items.
I was ready this time.
Oh. Hold on to that thought till Thursday.
Yes.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you. Good work, everyone.